Words.
This is the Onion News Network. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. As always, you're invited to join us, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. That would be why. The headphones were all mixed up. Everything's set. I just grabbed the wrong pair of headphones, and I got really confused there for a minute.
Sorry, that's my fault. I keep muting them because I can hear LRN when I'm sitting in here reading in the mornings.
Yeah, I understand. Well, no, that wasn't your fault at all. It wasn't that it was
We're
muted,
a bit tangled up here.
Normally, I'm 3, and when I turned it up, there was no audio, and I was like, oh, man, I can't hear myself. I can't hear the music. What's going on? And so that was fun. With you tonight, it's Aria.
Nikki.
And Bonnie.
And, of course, yesterday was Election Day. Not that I really care about the vast majority of it. However, Maine did have a constitutional amendment on its ballot that would make what the media is calling a right to food amendment, but that's not it at all. See, when I first saw that article, the headlines about it, I just ignored it because, okay, that's some hard left thing where people have the right to food or whatever. But that's actually not what it is at all. And it did actually pass. So that's awesome. So let me tell you what this is. A statewide referendum asked voters if they favored an amendment to the Maine Constitution, quote, to declare that all individuals have a natural, inherent, and unalienable right to grow, raise, harvest, produce, and consume the food of their own choosing for their own nourishment, sustenance, bodily health, and well-being.
Wow.
It was an experiment not tried before by any state. And I wouldn't mind seeing this go on in New Hampshire. It basically assures that people have the right to grow food on their property and to eat it. And
yeah.
I wonder if that's the same as the right to farm, because I know there's a lot of right to farm communities in the area.
It sounds very much like the same thing.
But then I bet the word farm has some specific definition that, oh, this isn't technically farming. You're not farming correctly. We're going to pour bleach on your soil or whatever, you know?
Also true, and this would include livestock, presumably, as well as actual gardening.
Wow.
Supporters used the campaign to make the case the amendment would ensure the right to grow vegetables and raise livestock in an era when corporatization threatens local ownership of the food supply. They positioned the amendment as a chance for Mainers to wrestle control of the food supply back from large landowners and giant retailers with little connection to the community. And again, I wouldn't mind seeing something like this in New Hampshire, and I would vote for it if such a thing actually came around.
I would too.
Opponents cast the drive as deceptively vague. They also said it represented a threat to food safety and animal welfare. Oh, because you can't just let people grow their own food or raise their own animals, right?
And for them to say that it's an animal welfare issue is laughable, because if you've seen the conditions in factory farming that animals have to live in, I'm sure anybody's local farm could be better. I don't understand how it could be worse than factory farms.
The conditions that are okayed by the government.
Yeah, most people have no idea how bad factory farms really are, and I didn't know how bad they were until I watched a movie called Food Incorporated. Mm-hmm. And yeah, they are horrific, man.
I watched one of those. My grandma had me watch in like 2016, and yeah, it was horrible.
There's 2 of them that I would recommend. Food Incorporated is really good. The other one is Earthlings. It's much harder to watch. But, and a lot of people come away from it being a vegan. I didn't come away from it as a vegan, but I did come away as it changed my perspective on animal rights for sure.
Today, Ian ordered veal, and I was like, that's the meanest meat.
Aww.
It could encourage residents to try to raise cows in their backyards in cities like Portland and Bangor. I don't necessarily see an issue with that. And look, if my neighbors want to get some cows in their backyard, that's their backyard.
This was an issue in one of the cities in Massachusetts. People wanted to have chickens in their backyard, and even if they had adequate amount of space and it was kind of more of like a rural area of the city, it was illegal. So people had chickens, and it was like a big deal because people had chickens in their backyard, and then the animal control people came over and made them get rid of their chickens.
That's so stupid. You don't need that much room for chickens.
You don't.
I don't see how they'll cause an issue.
I actually looked into this recently, and in in Keene, you can have up to 5 chickens, I think, in your backyard with no other limits whatsoever. I don't remember all the specifics, but you don't have to jump through any hoops to have up to 5 chickens for whatever that's worth in your backyard. Although you do have to get licenses and stuff like that for your dog, but not your chickens. It's all very stupid. And that frustrates me. I didn't even know that was a thing when I took my puppy to the vet to get her rabies shot. I then got a letter a few weeks later from the city of Keene saying, hey, at your earliest convenience, come by and license your dog or whatever so we can prove that she's been vaccinated. But the only reason they became aware of the existence of my dog was because the vet that vaccinated her against rabies made them aware.
Yeah, I know. The same thing happened to me. So what are you going to do about it?
Right. I mean,
No, what are you going to do about your letter? I'm ignoring mine.
yeah, I put mine through the shredder.
Well,
Yeah, screw them.
Mark did tell me that I needed to write them back and say 3 things. 1, prove that this animal is a dog.
Oh, man.
2, prove that this animal lives at my house. And 3, prove that I own this animal, and then they never wrote him back. So he
'Cause
said that, yeah.
They probably just didn't want to deal with that.
He also, has Mark ever lived within the city of Keene? Or did, like, Stoddard do this? Not Stoddard.
I think it's a whole New Hampshire thing or something, because I know in Concord there was like big things where everybody who didn't want to register their dogs went and tried to like sue at the same time, and they dropped it. They dropped all their, like, they were trying to go after them.
It varies by city and town. I think, like, in Westmoreland, you don't have to do anything. I don't think Winchester requires anything. But Keene, of course, is liberal, and they do. But yeah, I threw it in the trash because that's stupid.
Yeah.
The vet ensured that my dog was vaccinated against rabies. Given the city of Keene, $25 is not going to help prove that my dog is vaccinated against rabies.
Well, it's really just a fee because you have a dog. It has nothing to do with, like, why would you need to get your dog licensed? That doesn't even make sense.
It doesn't. You don't have to get your cats licensed, which I guess is good. But I'm also not getting my dog licensed because it's none of their business. And it said at my earliest convenience. Okay, fine. Well, we're already done with this conversation because it's never, ever going to be convenient for me to drop by the city of Keene and give them money. That's the least convenient thing I can think about. Even if City Hall wasn't located at one of the most difficult spots to drive in Keene, it's still not convenient to just drop off and give the government $25. No, thank you. At my earliest convenience, I will do it. Sure. But it's never, ever going to be convenient. So anyway, getting back to this article about the right to grow food, Senator Craig Hickman, a Democrat and lifetime supporter of the amendment, said he was inspired by this legislative session by the amount of bipartisanship that went into the amendment. I'm surprised a Democrat was on board with hearing the criticisms about food safety and animal welfare. Seems like those would be Democratic talking points, but hey, bipartisan, that's great. The proposed amendment was the result of effort by members of the state's food sovereignty movement. The movement includes small farmers, raw milk fans, libertarians, who should be moving to New Hampshire, liberals, and anti-corporate activists who all feel local communities should have more of a say in the future of the food supply. Maine enacted a food sovereignty law in 2017. That law allows local governments to okay small food producers selling directly to customers on site. Other states around the country have passed similar laws in the years since Maine passed its law. I imagine New Hampshire has one as well because there are farmer markets and stuff everywhere. And no one seems to ever care or do anything about it. So kudos to Maine for this. The Maine Farm Bureau, the largest farming advocacy group in the state, opposed the new constitutional amendment. Of course they did, because they're a union representing that's supposed to protect companies like Tyson. The group's leader said Tuesday the Bureau respected the will of the voters. It's prepared to support Maine farmers as this amendment is enacted and, as always, stands clear in its resolve to protect and embrace food safety and animal welfare as a standard for all people in Maine, said the Bureau's executive director. So, go ahead.
When I lived in Maine, I was up there working. There was a girl that was from there that told me when she was a kid, she was just talking about how much she loved growing up in Maine and all the community and stuff is really tight-knit because it's like small population. She said that her family was really poor and they had lots of kids, and her neighbors that grew food on their land would let them go and take like their like scraps.
Oh, that's nice of them.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? Should the right to grow your own food actually be a thing? I think it should be. I'd like to see more of it. 603-283-6160. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, and we've been telling you about how Intercoin can help any business launch their own currency or raise money using their own token. Well, now Intercoin has launched its investor token worldwide, and for the first time it's available on an exchange. You can create an account at exmarkets.com, with just an email address. So you can keep your privacy intact. You can then deposit dozens of different cryptocurrencies and trade them for ITR, the Intercoin Investor Token. Learn more about the Intercoin vision at intercoin.org. That's intercoin.org. Or visit exmarkets.com, xmarkets.com. You might be advancing the cause of liberty around the world. exmarkets.com. Now, Bonnie, you brought in two interesting stories about sleep. And sleep is something that's been fascinating me more and more recently as I realize just how screwed up my sleep patterns really are. And a large part of that had to do with the abrupt transition to waking up at like 8 o'clock in the morning because I'm naturally a night owl. And that's sort of gone away in the last few weeks, thankfully. So I'm back to waking up at like 11 or noon or something like that. And that's much more natural for me. But between the sleepwalking and the not sleeping at all, it's just a fascinating subject for me. Because night owls are a thing.
Yeah.
And I'm one of them.
And it's a biological thing. Like, I used to think, oh, it's just so bad that people want to wake up late and go to sleep late. It's just a really unhealthy thing. But it's actually just something that some people's bodies naturally prefer. And it's actually not bad as long as you keep to the same schedule every day. But I naturally want to wake up early and go to sleep early. And I haven't been able to since, like, I moved here. So it's been... I don't know. I just haven't felt completely right. Like, so I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's really important to follow your own natural rhythm.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's pretty screwed up how going to bed early isn't viewed as lazy.
Yeah,
right?
that's kind of
But
true.
sleeping late is considered lazy because, like, we're getting the same amount of sleep. It's just in different time frames. And for one of those makes me lazy. Dude, I'm going to be accomplishing stuff at 1 o'clock this morning. Yeah. Are you going to be accomplishing stuff at 6 o'clock in the morning other than having your coffee or whatever? I don't know.
Well, the thing with me about waking up early, if I was able to, I just am not able to because there's a radio show that goes on until 11 at night in my house every day. But I like to wake up at like 7 and have 2 hours where nobody talks to me at all and I can wake up. And then I'm way more productive than the rest of the day. But there's like 2 hours where I really don't want to do anything. And now that I'm doing that at like noon to 2, it's like gets in people's way. Like I'm just like, ugh, I want to be sitting in here doing nothing and people are trying to make me do things, you know.
See,
I can totally see that.
I wake up and for like the next 2 hours, I don't really do a whole lot other than go outside to smoke and have some caffeine and stuff and just, you know, orient myself around the day that is coming.
Yeah.
And I don't want to speak to anyone in those first 2 hours if it can be helped. I don't want to see anyone in those first 2 hours.
But that also sounds like a healthy thing, though, to have that time by yourself just to ground yourself and to prepare for the day and to kind of, like, that doesn't necessarily seem like a bad thing to me. That actually seems like a very good, healthy thing to have for yourself.
I think so too. I always feel great when I have that time. And I'm not saying I haven't had that in a whole year because Ian mostly just goes around doing things while I sit in this room drinking coffee and reading. And the thing is, like, after like I'm awake, I don't want to read. I don't know what it is. It's in those 2 hours that I get all of my reading done. But I have a story here that's actually about night owls. And it's from the Sleep Foundation, a OneCare media company. It says, night owls experienced more sleep problems than other chronotypes during pandemic. Those who consider themselves to be night owls may be experiencing more sleep problems along with mental and physical health issues during the pandemic, according to a new study from the Sleep Research Society, recently published in the journal Sleep.
Now, that seems surprising to me. It seems like the pandemic and people staying at home would give night owls more leeway to just sort of sleep whenever they feel comfortable sleeping.
Yeah, not having to get up to go to a job if that's like...
Yeah. Like, that's how it's been for me, at least, during the pandemic. But I tend to always work nights anyway, so... The only part that was different for me was, like, that period from, like, May to September. And that was horrible.
It says, surveying nearly 20,000 adults across 15 countries and regions from May to August 2020, researchers found that those with an evening chronotype, a unique trait defining circadian rhythms in an individual, okay, that's what a chronotype is, showed an alarming increase in sleep problems amid the pandemic. The chronotypes identified in the study included definite evening types, moderate evening types, intermediate types, moderate morning types, and definite morning types.
I don't know what any of that means.
Yeah.
Morning people who are kind of morning people.
What's the intermediate, though? I guess.
Maybe that means like waking up at noon? and going to sleep at midnight. The study was...
Good God, though. 12 hours of sleep?
Oh, well, I don't know.
I go to bed at like 4 and then wake up at like 10.
If I sleep for 12 hours, I feel worse than if I didn't get enough sleep.
I don't think I would be able to sleep for 12 hours.
I've definitely done
it. I know I couldn't. My dog would wake me up. But
oh, yeah.
Even if it wasn't for that, I don't think I could sleep for 12 hours unless I was like, heavy on drugs or something the day before.
My little sister has always slept for like 12 hours a night and like won't be woken up when I try to get her to like go do something that it had to be done at a certain time. And I used to think she was just lazy, but teenagers need more sleep than adults.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyways, the study was used to illustrate the role of chronotypes in a person's sleep health, mental health, and even physical health, and why evening types may be susceptible to chronic long-term physical and mental health conditions over time. Evening types, when asked about their quality of life amid COVID-19, were more likely to report feelings of stress and sadness, as well as disturbing thoughts about themselves and the past, and even nightmares. So, what is an evening type? I wish they explained that.
So it's probably like a normal person that's kind of like a typical night owl, right? So like you might go to bed at like 3 o'clock in the morning. Whereas if like an actual nocturnal person, like I work 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. So half of the week I don't go to sleep. Like by the time I drive an hour to get back to New Hampshire, I don't go to sleep until like 9 or 10 a.m. And then I, wake up in the afternoon.
Or is this a result of your job?
No, that's just a result of my job. Generally, like I would prefer to be what I would consider an evening type, which would be somebody going to bed at like 3 o'clock in the morning or like 2 o'clock in the morning.
See, 2 and 3 are still slightly early for me. I prefer about like 4, maybe 5 at the latest for going to sleep. But that's just me.
Yeah, like that's like a bit too late for me, but it kind of gets me all messed up because then I'm like super tired because on those days I'll only sleep for like 4 hours because then I have to wake up and do stuff during the day.
Yeah.
So like half the week I'm nocturnal and then half the week I'm waking up early at like 8 or 9 o'clock. And then so I'm just like completely back and forth.
Yeah, when I worked at night shifts, whenever I would get home, I would have this like hour where I couldn't fall asleep. Like I was energized, and that was annoying.
Now, isn't that the part that's unhealthy, is going from one sleep pattern to another like regularly?
I think it's so unhealthy, and I can feel like at first, like when I was doing this in nursing school, it was kind of out of necessity. So, and it's like you don't sleep in nursing school anyways. But now, as I've been doing it for a couple of years, I'm really starting to feel it.
Did they push the mandate back at your workplace again?
I have until the 15th, allegedly.
Well,
we'll see what happens. I'll let you guys know.
On the 15th, you can get your sleep patterns back.
Yeah, hopefully.
Are you a night owl? Did the pandemic mess you up? 603-283-6160 if you'd like to join us. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off. Now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or anytime on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. President Biden has sidestepped questions about whether he takes personal responsibility for the Democrats' failure to recapture the governor's mansion in Virginia. Republican candidate Glenn Youngkin won a shock-come-from-behind victory that has rankled Democrats and raised fears about their prospects of retaining control of both houses of Congress in next November's midterm elections. President Biden offered his reaction to the result at the White House.
People are upset and uncertain about a lot of things, from COVID to school to jobs to a whole range of things, and the cost of a gallon of gasoline. And so if I'm able to sign into law my Build Back Better initiative, I'm in a position where you're going to see a lot of those things ameliorated.
But it is still not clear when those key planks of the president's domestic agenda will secure sufficient Democratic Party support to pass in Congress. In Britain, a huge argument is raging after Prime Minister Boris Johnson intervened to save a lawmaker accused of egregious wrongdoing from a parliamentary suspension. Owen Paterson was found to have repeatedly lobbied officials on behalf of two companies who were also paying him. FSN's Ollie Barrett in our London bureau says even some members of the governing Conservative Party are nervous about the Prime Minister's stance.
Quite a good number of Conservative MPs, even some who would have gone ahead and supported it, are uncomfortable about moving ahead in this direction. The criticism from opposition MPs more vocally is that this is giving parliamentarians the chance to mark their own homework, and they believe that it will significantly damage trust in MPs and trust in Parliament.
The UN is warning that prolonged fighting in Ethiopia could open the way for more human rights violations. The move came 24 hours after the government in Addis Ababa declared a national state of emergency, with rebel groups vowing to occupy the city. From FSN's bureau there, Coletta Wanjohi reports.
The report's findings suggest that all parties to the conflict have committed violations of international human rights, some of which may amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity. The report has been released as the conflict in the north marks a year since it began, with rebels threatening to enter the capital Addis Ababa.
A top Chinese tennis player has accused a former Communist Party senior official of sexual assault. Peng Shuai, a former top doubles player, lodged the accusation against retired Vice Premier Zhang Guoli on the social media site Weibo. It has since been removed from the platform. Mr. Zhang was a close ally of Chinese President Xi Jinping before his retirement in 2018. He is now 75. 40 years older than Ms. Peng. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You're invited to take control of the airwaves. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. That's 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Arya,
Nikki, and Bonnie.
And we're talking about sleep here. And just, it's a fascinating subject because sleep is treated so... I hate sleep, right? I really do. It is so it's so unproductive. I would rather be doing almost anything else to be productive. But when you sleep, you're just sleeping.
No, your cells are regenerating, your body's healing. There's so much that happens when you sleep that you don't even know.
You're practicing whatever you learned that day, at least.
Yeah, your brain is processing stuff. Yeah.
I don't disagree with any of that, but if they made a pill where my body could do all of that and my brain could still work on stuff, I would absolutely take that pill. That's all I'm saying. I would rather spend those 6 to 7 hours doing something than laying in my bed unconscious. So, never been a big fan of sleep.
Yeah, it's a very different type of doing that gets done, very not active.
I love it.
I love sleeping. Sleeping's the best.
See, I've just never been that way. I want to sleep as little as my body can handle. And on a consistent basis, I found that to be about 6 hours on average per night.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good amount of sleep.
But I hate it. I hate losing those 6 hours every single day.
I get excited when it's getting close to time for bed. I'm like, oh my God, sleep is going to be so good. Every single night, never gets old.
I can't imagine because I dread it. I sit there, I'm like, okay, I'm too tired. I have to stop what I'm doing and go to bed now. And it's just there goes my productivity for the next 6 hours. Even if it's not anything that's really important or something, I'm still doing something that is more productive than sleeping. So never been a big fan of sleep. And when you add that in with being a night owl, what I love about being a night owl though is that there's no one around to bother me. I'm free to do whatever I want, to be as productive as I want, as creative as I want, without any interruptions. Versus when I wake up at noon and my phone just immediately starts ringing. I check and I have 14 unread emails and other stuff to deal with. I'm like, will you people leave me alone and let me do stuff? But it never works out that way. But we're talking about night owls and how apparently the pandemic has disrupted their sleep patterns.
Apparently more so than other chronotypes. There was a study that was done to illustrate the role of chronotypes in a person's sleep health, mental health, and even physical health, and why evening types, which is what they're calling night owls, may be susceptible to chronic long-term physical and mental health conditions over time. Evening types, when asked about their quality of life amid COVID-19, were more likely to report feelings of stress and sadness, as well as disturbing thoughts about themselves and the past, even nightmares. While evening types slept less before the pandemic than other circadian types, that difference disappeared amid the pandemic, which makes sense. You had more time to sleep because you didn't have to wake up. So it's like they were going to sleep late and then they had to wake up early for a job, but then during the pandemic they're getting more sleep. It says the sleep duration within a 24-hour period was significantly longer among evening types versus morning types, therefore resulting in more naps during the day for night owls.
That's weird. I will say that I do tend to take like a 30-minute nap at some point during the afternoon.
I took a 2-hour nap today and it was awesome.
Jeez, I couldn't have taken that long. I mean, usually it's just like I eat and then I'm tired, so I take like a half an hour nap and then wake up and back at it. For whatever reason, I've learned that eating makes me very sleepy.
Me too.
Yeah, me too. I think that must be a thing, that once your belly's full and it's time to digest and take a nap.
A food stupor or whatever. It says, despite the opportunity to sleep more often during the pandemic, the sleep problems that evening types encountered override any positive effects that the adjustment of sleep-wake behavior towards preferred timing during the pandemic.
Well, it sounds like sleeping longer hours didn't help them at all. It sounds like it actually made things worse for them, right?
Yeah, maybe it's like going against what their natural inclination would be.
Well, and that kind of goes back to the theory that we were saying before about how too much sleep isn't necessarily a good thing.
Yeah. Makes me feel weird the whole day.
It just makes me feel more tired and like groggy, and like I can tell like if I slept too much, it's definitely like I don't feel good.
This is why alarms are so great, though. That way you never really have to worry about it.
Yeah.
You can always make sure that you don't sleep 12 hours or whatever. But again, I don't think my body would let me sleep for 12 hours.
Well, with Ian and I, the reason we end up sleeping like 12 hours or something every once in a while is the alarm will go off, but then he'll be like, do you want to snooze? Or he won't ask me and he'll just snooze it. And we just feel so good sleeping in that moment. We're like, okay, just 30 more minutes, and then it just keeps happening.
Right.
Yeah, I find that if I sleep for 12 hours, it's because I didn't sleep the previous day. Like I'll do that a lot where I'll just go like over 24-hour periods without sleeping at all just because of my like crazy schedule. And then once it finally catches up to me, I'll sleep for like 12 or 14 hours that day. But I still just feel awful, like, even though I kind of needed the sleep because I missed out. I feel like I was unproductive, and it just doesn't make me feel good.
I read something about that several weeks ago about how losing just one night of sleep, it could take like a week for your body to fully recover from that.
And that is so true, because for like weeks I've just been feeling like now I'm finally kind of like starting to reset myself because I haven't been picking up extra shifts at work, but it's just like I could tell it was catching up to me, and even if I hadn't worked the night before, I was just always tired, and like I was getting sick when before I have a great immune system. I never ever get sick.
So is there more about this story?
Well, it says notably participants who identified as definite evening types saw the largest increase in sleep problems during the pandemic. They experienced an uptick in problems with poor sleep quality, sleep onset problems, sleep maintenance problems, excessive sleepiness, fatigue, and even nightmares. These findings are in line with previous studies on the associations between sleep problems and chronotypes, showing time and time again that night owls face more sleep problems.
I don't think it's related to the pandemic, but I did become aware that I've started sleepwalking, at least, and that coincided with the pandemic. But for all I know, I've been sleepwalking for the last 10 years. I just never knew about it.
But maybe it could be related to the pandemic in the sense that everybody quit your job and you're like working so much more now.
Well, not anymore. I'm not.
Oh, yeah, you're not
but
anymore.
That very well could have been the case. It was definitely I tend to think it was related to the having to wake up at, 7 o'clock and be at work at 9 a.m. because that's extremely unnatural for me. Like, even when I was in high school and junior high, I wouldn't go to bed before midnight, even though I had to be up at 6 in the morning to get ready for school, just because that was what my preferred sleep pattern was. That was what felt natural to me. So even back then, I didn't want to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning because I wanted to go to bed at 2. And then suddenly, back in May or whenever it was, I had to do a lot of waking up at 7 in the morning. It was very unnatural. I don't know that the sleepwalking actually stopped or anything like that. I just sort of stopped paying attention to it because I realized it seemed to be kind of a regular thing, and it wasn't really causing any problems. I would just get up, and then at some point I would go back to bed.
And what could you do about it? You knew about it, but what could you do?
I mean, there's sleep therapy programs and stuff like that, but it just seemed like a waste of time for something that wasn't really causing any issues. So I just stopped paying attention to it. And for all I know, it's probably stopped now that I'm back to, going to bed at 4 in the morning, which is pretty natural and normal for me. So anyway, that's true, at least for me. I mean, my sleep is disruptive, but that's sort of always been the case as well. I've never slept well, sleep apnea and stuff like that. But sleepwalking is a new thing as far as I'm aware, and that coincides with the pandemic. But nightmares and stuff like that, it sounds like these people just started sleeping too much because suddenly they didn't have, jobs to wake up and do. But I don't know. I do know, however, that Democrats are losing their minds. They lost a lot of elections yesterday, and evidently they think that the cure to their problems is to go even further left than they already are. They're just not progressive enough. They're just not socialist enough. And they think that's what's causing them to... It's not the insane rhetoric, right? And calling everyone racist and transphobic and homophobic. It has nothing to do with any of that. They just need to go harder left. We're going to talk about that. 603-283-6160 if you want to join us. It's Free Talk Live.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Pork Fest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. Forkfest.party.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
My name is Angel Rach. I'm a mother of 2 teenage children, and I fought all the way to the Supreme Court for the right to use the medicine that saved my life. I've been permanently disabled for 10 years, with an inoperable brain tumor, wasting syndrome, and several other serious conditions. For 4 years, I was in a wheelchair, in so much pain I couldn't even hug my kids. The hardest part was looking in their eyes and seeing how much they were suffering because of my medical condition. The medicine that gave me my life back and gave my kids their mom back was cannabis, also known as medical marijuana. With medical marijuana, I can walk, maintain my weight, and I can be a mom. Without it, my doctors believe that I would die. To learn more about medical marijuana, contact Marijuana Policy Project at 1-877-JOIN-MPP or on the web at mpp.org.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and it's never a good idea to keep a lot of cryptocurrency on your phone. It makes it too easy to spend, or someone could hack your device, or just outright take your device from you. The question of how to safely store cryptocurrency was answered a long time ago, but now Bitbox has given an even better answer. It's a hardware wallet that is completely open source, and it doesn't have some of the problems that other hardware wallets seem to have. Soon, we'll be giving away 3 of the latest versions of the Bitbox. But if you don't want to wait or take your chances in a giveaway, head to box.freetalklive.com to purchase one of these hardware wallets and use code FTL for a 5% discount. That's box.freetalklive.com. I personally haven't looked into these, obviously, because I'm not allowed to thanks to bell restrictions. But Bonnie, you've looked into one. I know Mark received one, and Mark rarely stops raving about it.
I just got it. I haven't looked into it enough or anything.
So that's box.freetalklive.com. It's a really cool concept, and it is a difficult thing. You know, if you have any significant amount of cryptocurrency, or even if it's just, 0.1 Bitcoin cash or whatever, you need a safe way to store it somewhere in a way where it can't just be hacked or stolen or whatever. And Bitbox has a really good solution to that, from what I can tell. But let's go to the phones. We have Pepsi calling from the Bronx. Pepsi, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Hey, what's on your mind tonight?
All right, just a couple of things. One about the hating sleep. I can relate to that, and something that I think that you might want to look into, and I think Bonnie mentioned it sometime before, was look into some lucid dreaming, because you feel like you're in the real world, but it's better because if you realize you're in a dream and you're flying, you can do it by choice, so it won't feel like you're having, 6 hours of dead time.
I mean, I've experienced lucid dreaming before. A lot of people assume it means that, you can take control of the dream or whatever. That can be the case, but lucidity has more to do with awareness and things like that. And the reason I first began experiencing these was because of sleep paralysis and being in this sort of realm where you were like half awake, half asleep, and you were aware that you were asleep, but you were unable to wake yourself up. And this is why you have paintings from the Renaissance of people being visited by demons and stuff like that, because they experience these sleep paralysis episodes where you feel like these things are actually happening. Like I've dreamed and I thought these things were actually happening to me because I thought I was awake, of being cataloged by giant aliens in this warehouse, of riding in a spaceship among the stars and things like that. And I did ultimately realize when looking into it that these were just sleep paralysis episodes, and that I could actually take control of the dream and direct them as I wanted once I became aware of the fact that I was streaming. But nothing like that has happened in years.
I'm sorry, if you practice at it, then, you can be more productive, because I'm an artist, right? And a lot of times I'll get inspirations from my dreams, just by letting it flow in,
Sure.
and that way, you don't hate the dead time so much. And I have another question that I wanted to talk to you specifically about. It's about transgender sports and people getting twisted about it. And I was wondering what you thought about this. What about just a whole other category, right, of transgendered male and transgender females competing against each other? That way they don't have any, nobody can say anything about it. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't really have a straightforward answer to that. I will say a large number of the top American athletes in the United States are black or African Americans, or whatever term you want to use. Would it be fair to have to segregate the underperforming white athletes from the black athletes to give the white ones a chance to actually excel? I don't think so.
Yeah, because genetically, I mean, your race really doesn't have anything to do, I think, with your ability to reach a certain pinnacle, But biologically, regardless of how somebody feels they are, in the gender realm, the body is still going to be basically starting out as a male or a female. So just so that they don't have any controversy and people can't say that, it's an unfair advantage. If you had a category where transgender females would compete in track and field and transgender males would do the same, that way they can't say that no one has an unfair advantage because everybody starts off pretty much on the same playing field. You feel me?
So there have actually been studies done that African Americans do perform better in sports settings, and you can kind of see it too with, most of the people that win the marathon or, most of the first medalists in the Olympics are generally African American. So I kind of do get comparing transgendered to separating white and black people in different events, how it's kind of similar. And another point is I think there wouldn't be enough transgender athletes to even form something like that. And especially if you talk about high schools and middle schools and stuff like that, there just literally wouldn't be enough. And then you're kind of excluding those kids. So while I think it's an interesting idea, I'm not sure if that would completely
I just
work.
think that this is a sort of a non-issue because the thing is it should always be voluntary. Why should there be there shouldn't be a law governing how you group together to play sports with people. If you want to join an all-trans team, then you should be allowed to. If you don't want to and you have other people that agree to play with you, then who's stopping these people? This is a kind of a ridiculous thing.
I think there's a bit of a sample bias going on here because the news, they're just not going to cover the story about the trans girl who came in last place in the marathon or who came in last place or, fifth place in the wrestling tournament. The news just is not going to cover that. So the only time you hear about a trans athlete, it's when one takes first place. You can laugh, but that's the reality of the situation. You're never going to see a news headline, male to female wrestler places 7th place in this tournament of 9 people. The media is just never going to do it, but let that person win. And then all of a sudden, everyone comes out and goes, oh, it's just an unfair advantage, fully disregarding the number of trans women who are competing in women's sports and are just unremarkable because they're losing.
Yeah, and I know a lot of genetic women that can kick a lot of genetic males' asses, you know what I mean? So
sure.
There you go. There's no easy answers,
Wait, can I ask you one more thing, Pepsi? I just wanted to know if you have any tips on lucid dreaming.
Yeah. A lot of times when I sleep, I'm listening to the internet radio, right? So I'm not really into a deep sleep. And they say your REM state kicks off every 90 minutes. And so I find that a lot of times, if there's some stimulus around me while I'm sleeping, when my REM state kicks in, I kind of I'm half awake and half asleep. And so when you realize you're in that state, and start thinking about something of choice while you're going into that other realm, because there's times when I'm going from one realm to the other, and when I snap out of the dream realm into reality for a minute, very quickly what I'm thinking about disappears, just like when you wake up in the morning and you're dreaming, and a minute later you forgot what you were dreaming about, unless you stay really still and try to hold on to what it was, and then, your wake state can maintain what your dream state was going through. And then you can have a better memory of it. So I think it's just about making a conscious effort to make a conscious effort.
It makes sense.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for the call tonight, Pepsi. I mean, I wish I had a more satisfying answer about the trans athlete thing, but I'm no longer an athlete. I did used to kickbox, and I feel like if I was going to get back into kickboxing because I went through puberty as a male, it just wouldn't be fair for me to compete against, cisgender women in this highly physically aggressive arena. But what about the male to female trans person who, transitioned into female at the age of 13 and didn't go through puberty as a male? I don't know. And what about XXY people or XYY or whatever? Because those people do exist. And then you have other athletes. I don't remember exactly who. It was some athlete who was in the Olympics or she was in some sporting competition and they tried to ban her for competing because her testosterone levels were too high.
And she was a cis woman.
Yeah.
So and this is the type of conundrum where nobody's ever going to be happy. There's no good answer for it. So I say I like Bonnie's solution where just let it be a voluntary thing. If a trans woman wants to compete with the women, let her. Who really cares?
I guess if the people overseeing that league or whatever, the voluntary league, have women competing in it that don't mind competing with a trans woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it should be voluntary. There shouldn't be a law about it or anything like that because laws never make anything better. But it's also true that you're just never going to hear about the female to male boxer who got the crap beaten out of him in a boxing match or the male to female boxer who got the crap beaten out of her in a boxing match. You're just never going to hear about these stories. But let a trans woman fight another trans woman and crack her skull. Suddenly it's a big deal and everyone is talking about it in full disregard of the athletes that aren't getting talked about because they're just not that exceptional. So I don't know, but there is more coming up. Some Democrats think the party just isn't far left enough. I don't think they're learning anything from these elections. It's Free Talk Live.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. President Biden has sidestepped questions about whether he takes personal responsibility for the Democrats' failure to recapture the governor's mansion in Virginia. Republican candidate Glenn Youngkin won a shock-come-from-behind victory that has rankled Democrats and raised fears about their prospects of retaining control of both houses of Congress in next November's midterm elections. President Biden offered his reaction to the result at the White House.
People are upset and uncertain about a lot of things, from COVID to school to jobs to a whole range of things, and the cost of a gallon of gasoline. And so if I'm able to sign into law my Build Back Better initiative, I'm in a position where you're going to see a lot of those things ameliorated.
But it is still not clear when those key planks of the president's domestic agenda will secure sufficient Democratic Party support to pass in Congress. In Britain, a huge argument is raging after Prime Minister Boris Johnson intervened to save a lawmaker accused of egregious wrongdoing from a parliamentary suspension. Owen Paterson was found to have repeatedly lobbied officials on behalf of two companies who were also paying him. FSN's Ollie Barrett in our London bureau says even some members of the governing Conservative Party are nervous about the Prime Minister's stance.
Quite a good number of Conservative MPs, even some who would have gone ahead and supported it, are uncomfortable about moving ahead in this direction. The criticism from opposition MPs more vocally is that this is giving parliamentarians the chance to mark their own homework, and they believe that it will significantly damage trust in MPs and trust in Parliament.
The UN is warning that prolonged fighting in Ethiopia could open the way for more human rights violations. The move came 24 hours after the government in Addis Ababa declared a national state of emergency, with rebel groups vowing to occupy the city. From FSN's bureau there, Coletta Wanjohi reports.
The report's findings suggest that all parties to the conflict have committed violations of international human rights, some of which may amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity. The report has been released as the conflict in the north marks a year since it began, with rebels threatening to enter the capital Addis Ababa.
A top Chinese tennis player has accused a former Communist Party senior official of sexual assault. Peng Shuai, a former top doubles player, lodged the accusation against retired Vice Premier Zhang Guoli on the social media site Weibo. It has since been removed from the platform. Mr. Zhang was a close ally of Chinese President Xi Jinping before his retirement in 2018. He is now 75. 40 years older than Ms. Peng. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, checking in today, as we do from time to time, with the case of Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe, the British Iranian aid worker undergoing a Kafkaesque experience in Iran, where last month she lost her appeal against a second jail sentence, this time on trumped-up charges of spreading propaganda. Last time she was accused of plotting to topple the government in Tehran. Her husband Richard is now into the 11th day of a hunger strike in London.
It's pretty chilly out here. You feel the cold more, so chilly is exactly the right word.
He's camped out opposite the Foreign Office building in Whitehall in a bid to force the government to do more to assist his wife in her quest to return to the UK.
I had for a while been quite critical of the government's approach to dealing with Iran's hostage-taking, and asked the new Foreign Secretary now what she was going to do, and she said, well, if Nazanin goes into prison, we'll do something. So it felt like, well, the only thing I can do to escalate it so they don't need to put her in prison would be to go and camp here. So that's what we've done.
5 separate British foreign secretaries have so far tried and failed to secure his wife's release. They include the man now heading Britain's government, Boris Johnson. The current Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss, says the government is doing all it can to press Iran over the case. But it is not yet agreeing to resolve a debt of £400 million to Iran that Richard Ratcliffe says is key to securing his wife's return. The main news again. Democrats in Washington are blaming one another for the party's shock defeat in the race to be the next governor of Virginia. In Britain, a huge argument is raging after Prime Minister Boris Johnson intervened to save a lawmaker accused of egregious wrongdoing from a parliamentary suspension. And the UN is warning that prolonged fighting in Ethiopia could pave the way for more human rights violations. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
Like many young inner-city students, Chicago area high school sophomore Brandy Perkins struggles every day to motivate her teachers. The frustrated 16-year-old talked to Onion reporters this morning to discuss the challenges she faces in reaching out to her underperforming educators.
Connecting with the teachers gets harder and harder every year. We all come in every morning eager to learn, but Most of the teachers just seem completely uninterested in education. One of my teachers, Miss Manley, has been particularly hard to work with. She was quiet at first, but she showed some potential. I thought maybe she just needed a little time to come out of her shell, but as the weeks went by, she just sat there listlessly at her desk, never talking or participating. It just makes you feel so helpless.
For more on this story, check this week's Onion Review.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. You're invited to join us, share your thoughts and opinions. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to weigh in. That's 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Aria,
Nikki, and Bonnie.
And I'm going to be honest, I don't really know what happened in the election yesterday. There was something about Virginia, something in New Jersey. I don't care in the slightest who the governor of Virginia or New Jersey is. I barely care who the governor of New Hampshire is.
I always forget about New Jersey. New Jersey is like the one state that I forget is part of the United States. And that doesn't sound like it whenever you hear anything that goes on there.
Yeah, I don't want to be mean, but New Jersey is an awful place. It's just like...
I mean, most of the Northeast kind of is. I mean, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine are kind of the exceptions.
At least
Everywhere
they're pretty.
Else kind of
well,
sucks.
And Massachusetts is pretty, but yeah, New Jersey isn't really pretty.
I feel like it seems gloomy. I think it was previously coined the armpit of America. It kind of just like has that vibe. I feel bad because I actually have family in New Jersey, but even where they live, it's just like... You know, it's unmemorable. You know, like you go to New Hampshire. Even today, I was driving from Massachusetts into New Hampshire, and I was just driving up Route 2, and I was like, man, like, this looks like a painting. It was just so beautiful, like the clouds and the way the sun was shining on the trees. Like, it was just so gorgeous, and I feel like you wouldn't have that experience in a lot of other places.
No, New Hampshire is beautiful, but I just meant more of the culture.
Yeah.
Man. Connecticut, it feels... Connecticut feels like New Jersey, honestly.
Yeah.
It has that very New Jersey vibe to
I was
it.
disappointed by Connecticut because I, for some reason, always kind of thought it would be really cute and cool before I ever went there. And I've only been there, like, through it and then, like, to go pick up Mark and drop Mark off at the airport. And I just got, like, I was like, man, this place sucks.
I've been to Rhode Island, but I don't remember anything about it, so it's pretty unremarkable.
Yeah. Some areas of Rhode Island are a little bit better. Like, it's not as, like, bleh as Connecticut or New Jersey. Like, the beach area, like the coastal areas of Rhode Island are actually pretty nice. But it's still, like, I don't know. I feel like I come up to New Hampshire or Vermont, and I'm like, the culture just feels so rich. And it's like, you just feel so happy to be alive here. And then you go, like, further south, and it's like, meh.
The only thing that sucks about New Hampshire is that to get to the rest of the United States, you do have to drive through either New York or Massachusetts or both. And that kind of sucks. But anyway, there are results from yesterday. And Democrats, in case you were wondering, they learned nothing when Hillary got crushed in 2016. They thought they learned something when they elected Biden. I'm still to this day... As I watch these videos, these clips of Joe Biden falling asleep at the climate summit, I'm just stunned that, and the whole poopy pants thing where he's just standing there with his hands clenched awkwardly at his side. It's just amazing that that person ever got elected as president of the United States. Based on, even if you ignore everything he's done since becoming president, what about the stuff he said during the campaign? Like, how Corn Pop was a bad dude.
Yeah, and how the kids, rubbing his hairy legs.
I mean, full senile from this guy, and that's the president somehow. Anyway, progressive Democrats led by Ilhan Omar suggested the party needs to go even further to the left and didn't do enough to combat the Republicans' race-baiting BS as warring factions played the blame game.
Wait, the Republicans are the ones that are race-baiting? That's what he believes?
Ilhan Omar, yeah. She's one of the, I don't remember what they call themselves, but the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar, and there's a few others. I don't remember. They have this little clique. I don't remember what they call it. But there's like 3 or 4 representatives or senators who are part of it.
Communists?
Well, they are communists, but that's not what they call themselves. Senator Tim Kaine said he hoped his colleagues would treat the dismal showing like, quote, the ghost of Christmas future, and moderates called for an end to infighting with Biden's agenda, still stalled, and his approval ratings plummeting. Now, his approval ratings are pretty low from what I've heard. Again, I don't track it because I never... The Squad, someone who's watching it, YouTube.
Yeah, I just Googled it, yeah.
They're called The Squad for whatever reason. Thanks,
So lame.
Max Love on YouTube. Even the mainstream media was damning of the results and the fallout, with CNN saying Biden returned from Europe to a, quote, political nightmare, which, from what I can tell, it's Virginia has a Republican governor now, and New Jersey may have a Republican governor now. That's the political nightmares. They lost 2 elections.
And it's so funny because, like, Republican or Democrat, it's like the same person. Like, these people aren't going to be anything new.
No, it's amazing. Nothing changed whatsoever when we went from Donald Trump to Joe Biden.
No, it's like, it's the same thing, different person. All of these people are just puppets. It's really the corporations and the banks that are running America. It doesn't matter who the president is. It doesn't matter who's in Congress or who's in Senate. None of it's real.
Biden didn't make it any easier for people to immigrate to the United States. He didn't close any of the FEMA camps where Hispanic children are being, torn from their parents and kept in unsanitary, inhumane conditions. Didn't do any of that. Didn't stop any of the wars. And pretty much just carried on. There was possibility that Trump was going to roll back some Trump-era Cuba stuff, allowing people to more freely trade with the people in Cuba. But no, the Biden administration said, we're just going to keep that. So, yeah, they're absolutely 2 sides of the same coin.
And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but it seems like news sources, they talk about the people that they hate more than like the people they have running, right? So you'll have CNN who's just constantly, they're still probably talking trash about Trump. But then you have Fox News who the entire time they've just been talking trash about Biden. So it's like, can you talk about what your party is doing good, or can you only talk trash about the opposite party?
I just only get propaganda stories from major news outlets pop up on my phone. It's because I'm sure I could turn it off, but I just never have turned off like Apple News, and it usually sends Washington Post stories to my phone, and every day it's a new propaganda thing. Like one day I got something on my phone that said it was just a story somebody decided to write. It was how billionaires hoard wealth and keep it within their families, and it was supposed to, it was obviously made to sound really evil, and like what a good timing, when there's this legislation that's coming out where they're going to try to like tax billionaires extra. They're putting out a propaganda piece about how bad billionaires are.
You're absolutely right. I'm on weird bail conditions that allow me only access to specific websites, so I wanted a conservative website and a liberal website, so I asked for Fox News and MSNBC. And MSNBC almost never stops talking about Donald Trump.
Even now?
Yeah, yes. Yeah. Well, not right now. This is the first time I've even bothered to go to their website in months, because when you go there, like the first 5 stories are about why Trump or Mitch McConnell are just Satan incarnate.
Well, that's the other things that are always popping up. The other propaganda that's always popping up on my phone is January 6th. We have the latest of what the FBI has recovered from what we've discovered from what they did on January 6th. And it's always just a bunch of like word salad like that. It's stupid.
I will say that it's a lot better today. I don't see any mentions of Donald Trump at MSNBC.com. So kudos to them for that, for the first time in ever visiting. But what do we have? 5 myths about pediatric COVID vaccines debunked, which is interesting because I have a story about that, of 2 children being given adult doses of the COVID-19 vaccine by accident.
Lord.
I don't know what ramifications that has, but presumably they were supposed to get smaller doses because they're smaller people. Elon Musk wants to know what kind of cake the hungry are eating. How a Georgia law aimed at catching fleeing slaves led to the death of a black jogger. and other nonsense like that. The Virginia sexual assault case that could unfairly seal the fate for trans rights in America. And this is them on a good day. Normally it's just, here's how Trump incited the January 6th riots, and here's why you should be scared of Donald Trump running in 2024 and other nonsense like that. So it's, of all of these sites I requested, this is the one I go to least, and it's because it's nothing but anti-Trump leftist propaganda of no value whatsoever. It's Free Talk Live.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20. Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it.
Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. It's Bitcoin.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, where you're invited to join us, weigh in with your thoughts and opinions. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. That's 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Aria, Nikki, and Bonnie. And among the stuff happening yesterday in the elections, Minneapolis voters sadly rejected a proposal to replace the city's police department with a new Department of Public Safety, an idea that supporters had hoped would bring radical change to policing in the city where George Floyd's death under an officer's knee brought calls for racial justice. The initiative would have changed the city charter to remove a requirement that the city have a police department with a minimum number of officers. Now, we have city charters here in New Hampshire as well. I've never looked at Keens, but I would be shocked if it had a requirement to have a police department with a certain number of officers. That seems like a strange thing for a city charter. The authorization to have such a department, sure.
So if they would have voted yes on this, then that would have gotten rid of that?
Yes.
I mean, there's some towns in New Hampshire that literally have 2 cops, and they're not on duty past, 9 o'clock at night.
Or 1. Doesn't Roxbury have 1?
I don't... Does Roxbury have any? There's 700 people there.
Yeah.
I think it's called Roxbury, and I'm pretty sure it has 1, but that's... I don't know. I could be wrong.
I think Marlboro has 1. I would be shocked to find that Roxbury has any, or that
they definitely at least have 1.
Has any. Really?
They definitely at least have 1, because anytime I've driven through there with Ian tells me a story about getting pulled over there by the 1 cop, but I don't know if it was 1 or 2. Yeah.
Supporters said a complete overhaul of policing was necessary to stop police violence. Opponents said the proposal had no concrete plan for how to move forward, and warned that it would leave some communities already affected by violence more vulnerable as crime is on the rise. Well, you don't really have to have a plan to move forward to say, hey, the current plan isn't working and we need to stop it, right? You just have to try something else and try to find something that actually works. This whole utopian scheme of, you can't try anything different unless you have all of the details lined out, and you have to show me from A to B all the way out to Z exactly how all of this is going to work. But look, we already know the system you have in place is broken.
Yeah, and you can show exactly how that one doesn't work.
Yeah, so there's no real additional risk by trying this new thing that might work. And that's one of the things I run out into all the time, arguing for anarchism and stuff like that. But, well, what are you going to do in this contingency or that contingency?
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, right. The biggest one is always, well, what are you going to do about the guy with the biggest gun or the biggest army, the most money, hiring people to come and enslave you or whatever? It's like, dude, what you're not understanding here is that we already have this apparatus, this institution of people who have the biggest guns and the biggest armies, who do enslave us and who do threaten us and who do force us to abide by their will. You call them the government.
Yeah.
But that institution already exists.
In the mindset that we need all of the details ironed out before we stop what's clearly not working and move forward, that's why nothing gets done. And that's why U.S. politics, and probably politics in general, just doesn't really work. Because everybody has to vote on something, and then it always gets ruled out. And then when they do pass stuff, it's 4,000 pages long, and there's a bunch of hidden stuff in there that literally just makes things worse. It doesn't work.
Well, that sort of question, how do you have everything planned out? That's not really an argument for their position or an argument against your position. It's just an excuse for them to feel good about maintaining the current status.
And to not think any harder about it.
Right. Because they're so scared of what could happen. They create all of these possible horrible scenarios like New Hampshire independence. Oh, what are you going to do if China invades New Hampshire? Okay, well, first of all, why in the hell would China invade New Hampshire? Second of all, do you really believe for even the slightest moment that the United States government would just sit there and be like, good luck, New Hampshire. We're not going to do anything to intervene. We're just going to let this territory in the middle of our nation, or what used to be their nation, be taken over by the Chinese government. It's just absolutely absurd.
Yeah, a little too close for comfort.
Yeah. Or the alternative, well, what about when the U.S. government sends troops into New Hampshire to force you to comply? Well, hold on. You're saying we should remain loyal to this institution that if you say you don't want to be loyal to it anymore, it will drop bombs on you and march soldiers into your town So you're loyal out of fear here and not out of love for this institution. You're in an abusive relationship where you're scared to leave because the abusive one might just outright kill you. Well, you still got to leave that abusive relationship. But these are the sorts of arguments we get all the time against New Hampshire independence. And that's the biggest one. Well, the United States will just invade just like they did during the Civil War. Okay, fair point. That did happen, but it's not 1862 anymore. Yeah. It's 2021, and I don't think the United States government would be willing to risk the public perception or the worldwide perception of the United States invading New Hampshire. And even if they did, the fear of breaking up with them, that's not a motivation to stay in that relationship.
These people are really evil. You know what evil things they might do? That's what they're saying.
Yes.
Well, they're already doing them. I mean, they invaded this studio and they kidnapped a bunch of people. They robbed the place. They broke windows. They unplugged random stuff. They basically came in like a hurricane and destroyed everything. So they're already attacking people.
They are. But still, I mean, to me, it just comes back to that abusive relationship mentality. It is an abusive relationship that you have with the United States government if the only reason you won't break up with them is because you're scared of what they'll do to you if you do. That's just an abusive relationship.
Well, and that's kind of my point. Like, if my boyfriend came to my house and broke windows and kidnapped me and robbed me and destroyed a bunch of stuff, I would break up with him. So why aren't we doing that with the U.S.?
Because they're scared that the boyfriend will come back and just outright kill them or drop bombs on them.
Well, what do you have to lose?
That's how bad this abusive relationship really is, that an American citizen, a New Hampshire resident, could say with a straight face that they were scared of declaring independence because the federal government might, honest to God, drop a bomb on them. That is how aggressive and how evil this organization really is. And at the same time, they're declaring loyalty to that organization that will kill them if they try to break up. That's horrifying. I would want nothing to... I've seen lots of abusive relationships in my life. My mother loved getting into abusive relationships, so I know how they go. And you're never going to fix that relationship. The U.S. government is never going to be the loving partner that you want it to be. No matter how much you work to make that lover better, they're never going to get any better. The abuse is only going to get worse until they ultimately do beat you to death.
We can just vote for them to get better.
But it's not going to work. Just like, all of the things that people in abusive relationships do to make their partners, quote, get better don't ever work. People don't change in general, minus some life-changing catastrophe or cataclysm. The U.S. government certainly never going to change. Police forces never going to change. And on that subject, Nikki, you have some stories about the police that we want to get into. Sad, though, that Minneapolis did not vote to get rid of their police department. Maybe next time, but maybe we could do it here in Keene as well. 603-283-6160. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
If you want to bring more liberty into your community, there's something you should see. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, break through. It's true. It's truly something new. If you'd like to see real prosperity, start your own currency, boost the economy. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, its impact's hard to overstate, results you can appreciate. If you're tired of relying on the state, want to make your own community great, homelessness and hunger to eliminate, let the wealth accumulate. Don't wait for the growth rate to accelerate. Go to intercoin.org and get the coins for yourself.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. A date has been set for multilateral talks to revive the Iran nuclear deal. Negotiations have been on hold since the June election of Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi, who is expected to take a tough approach when the talks resume November 29th. FSN's U.S. correspondent Rachel Silverman reports.
The Biden administration says it will attend the Vienna meeting along with the remaining signatories to the Iran deal, in addition to Iran, that includes the UK, China, France, Germany, and Russia. The U.S. pulled out of the deal in 2018, then President Donald Trump's direction, and reimposed punishing sanctions, prompting Iran to breach limits on uranium enrichment set by the pact. Western nations have been calling on Iran to rejoin negotiations for months, warning that Tehran's nuclear advances have now strayed significantly beyond the limits set by the original deal.
U.S. President Joe Biden's Democratic Party is still reeling from losing the governorship in the state of Virginia. Republican candidate Glenn Youngkin won a shock come-from-behind victory that has rankled Democrats and raised fears about their prospects of retaining control of both houses of Congress in next November's midterm elections. FSN's U.S. correspondent Simon Marks says Democrats are blaming one another for the party's shock defeat.
They're essentially forming a circular firing squad up on Capitol Hill, with senior Democrats expressing fury that essentially their candidate in Virginia, Terry McAuliffe, was unable to point to any major legislative achievements, while the president's main domestic items remain stuck in limbo in Congress. And that's due to disunity within the party itself, and also to the fact that Joe Biden enjoys only a wafer-thin majority and has not yet succeeded in dragging either his infrastructure bill or the much bigger separate spending bill across the finishing line. But this is a wake-up call, a clear indication that voters are impatient, with polls showing a majority believe the country is on the wrong track.
The U.S. Federal Reserve has announced it will begin tapering its monthly bond buying program. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
In a statement released by the Federal Reserve, it announced the decision was made due to substantial progress that the US economy has made. The Fed has been buying $120 billion in Treasury bonds and mortgage-backed securities each month. That's being tapered down by $15 billion per month, but the central bank is leaving interest rates unchanged at near zero. The Federal Reserve's tasked with balancing economic growth with curbing inflation that's risen in recent months. The health of the US labour market will also dictate how the Fed acts going forward.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live with Aria and Bonnie and Nikki. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to join the discussion. And Bitcoin.com. It is the best place to go to learn about cryptocurrency. Just click Getting Started, stop at the page, take a few minutes out of your day to watch a couple of their short videos that will teach you the basics about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. But if you already are familiar with the subject, Bitcoin.com still has something for you at news.bitcoin.com, where you can stay up to date on all of the news and headlines that are relevant to you. All of that and more on a sleek, easy-to-use, modern website. That's Bitcoin.com. Now, Nikki, you brought in two different stories about police, one of which is just bizarre. The woman who was found on police property in the back of a van. But I want to talk about this woman who was arrested for exercising her First Amendment rights as a journalist.
Yeah, this one's from Reason.com. The title is, Cops Arrested Her for Exercising Her First Amendment Rights. They got qualified immunity, but the appeals court wasn't having it. This is not just an obvious constitutional infringement. It's hard to imagine a more textbook violation of the First Amendment. Whether you can exercise your First Amendment rights freely depends in some cases on where you live and what judges happen to hear your plea. Should you try to seek accountability for government reprisal against your constitutional liberties?
Sounds about right.
Yeah, it's pretty accurate.
It shouldn't depend on the judge, but sadly, it does.
Like most things.
And sometimes it just depends on the mood that the judge is in.
Yeah, that's also true. One such case is that of Priscilla Villarreal, a journalist in Laredo, Texas, who in 2017 was arrested after publishing two stories that ruffled feathers in the community. one surrounding a U.S. Border Patrol agent who committed suicide, the other which confirmed the identity of a family who had died in a fatal car crash.
So she basically just did journalism. She wrote a story about a Border Patrol agent who killed himself, and she identified a family who died in a car crash. So she did research, and she published that research.
And somehow she was arrested for this. Villarreal was no stranger to breaking stories with sensitive details on her Facebook page, which currently broadcasts over 19,000 followers. Nor was she cozy with local law enforcement, having cultivated a reputation as a citizen journalist who focuses on police misconduct and the justice system in videos she posts online, infused with colorful commentary.
Well, it's hard to be friendly with local police departments when you're doing your job correctly as a journalist or as a advocate of First Amendment rights. I mean, there's a reason King PD, they're not super thrilled with us.
Well, we're not super thrilled with them.
Also true.
She once live streamed a video of an officer choking someone during a traffic stop, for example.
Oh God.
And she drew the ear of district attorney after publicly rebuking him for dropping an arrest warrant for someone accused of animal abuse. But Villarreal found herself in a jail cell after breaking those two relatively benign stories concerning deaths in the community, charged with 2 third-degree felonies, counts of misuse of official information under Texas Penal Code 1906. She asked for and obtained the information in typical journalistic fashion from the Laredo Police Department itself. Didn't matter to the cops, who zeroed in on Villarreal as the first person they would ever seek to prosecute under the Texas statute.
Wait, it was information she got from the Laredo cops themselves?
Yeah, so she got this information from the police, she published the stories on it, and now they're claiming that this is a misuse of official information.
So if they gave it to her, wouldn't it be them that's guilty?
That's what I would think, but apparently...
But we're calm, rational thinking people. To the average statist, no, the journalist was in the wrong. The police can never do anything wrong.
But good news, these charges were eventually dismissed as baseless, and the law ruled unconstitutionally vague, which, yeah, it was. But those officers were given qualified immunity for violating her First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, and 14th Amendment rights when they arrested and detained her, thus preventing her from holding them accountable in civil court. The legal doctrine of qualified immunity protects public officials from facing civil suits if the precise way they went about violating your rights was not clearly established by the courts at the time.
Yeah, qualified immunity needs to go. These cops would not have done this if they could have been sued for violating her rights.
No, and they clearly just targeted her. Like this, it wasn't the story that was the issue. What they do is they didn't like her because she's filming police officers choking people on traffic stops. So they clearly don't like how she's basically outing them to the entire world about the awful things that they're doing. So they found this little thing, they jumped on it, and they arrested her for it, even though they had no grounds to do so.
No, and they gave her the information in the first place. The misuse of information, or whatever it is they said, they were the ones who gave her that information.
Yeah, so they clearly gave her the information, but they must have had an issue with the way she portrayed it in her article.
Or maybe they were setting her up.
Yeah, or maybe they were trying to set her up, but it just doesn't make sense how they could give her information and then say it's a misuse of official information.
Especially if they know she's a journalist.
Yeah, it sounds like they were just trying to set her up.
Yeah, well, if it's official information, wouldn't they not give it to her?
You would think. But she was also the first person prosecuted under this law, apparently, or who was charged with violating this law.
Yeah.
And it was ultimately thrown out, you said?
Yes.
The charges were dismissed?
Yeah.
That's good.
Ian told me today that Texas is the least personally free state. It ranked as number 50 in the last freedom ranking of the states.
Oh, I believe it. Texas has lost their minds. Like, You can no longer have strippers aged 18 through 20 in the state of Texas.
Did you guys talk about that on there?
No, we didn't talk about it on the air, but
Yeah.
What's the point of that?
I thought that was so weird.
Oh, they want them to be 21 because of the drinking age or something?
I don't know what their reasoning is.
And this conservative was arguing with Ian on Twitter, and he said that, basically that, Texas is not a place for libertarians. She was saying she was a libertarian, and that's why she moved to Texas. And he said something about the strippers thing, and she said, oh, because I don't want pedophiles in my state, means that you're not a pedophile if you're attracted to an 18 to 21-year-old girl.
No, obviously not.
Even the law says that. I mean, I like to argue that it doesn't even make sense that, like, it's fine if you're 18, but if you're, like, 2 weeks before your 18th birthday and you're still 17, like, the law just doesn't actually make sense. But even the law says that these people aren't minors. So how would they be pedophiles for just going to the strip club? I mean, those are legal adults.
Yeah, Texas is crazy for that.
I mean, the law is definitely stupid on this point because, I mean, I understand why people like this magic number they can point to at which a person becomes an adult or all of that, but it's really about one's personal experiences in life, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I realize my upbringing was atypical, but I was more mature at the age of 14 than most people are in college today at the age of 20 or 21 or whatever. It really doesn't matter how old they are. It has to do with what life experiences they have. And in general, sure, someone who's under 18 has probably experienced fewer things that make them mature than someone who's, 25 or whatever. But to act like this magical number is the end all of everything adulthood is just absolutely stupid. And they don't even treat it that way, right? Like now in Texas, you have to be 21 to be a stripper, but do you have to be 21 to join the military in Texas?
Yeah, of course not.
Because I'm willing to bet you don't have to be. You have to be 21 to drink. But in most places in the United States, you can start smoking at the age of 18. And most people actually start smoking and drinking long before 18 and 21 because they're starting to mature and they're learning how to make decisions for themselves in hopefully safe ways with their parents still at home. Do you really want a person's first time drinking out with a bunch of friends at the age of 21? Or do you want them drinking for the first time, in their parents' house when they're 17? To me, there's no contest between those things. What are your thoughts? 603-283-6160.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market. Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing. To be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. Physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Do you know the difference between erudite and pedantic? If you do, you're probably pedantic. But seriously, a surprising number of erudite people mispronounce erudite, which has 3 syllables, not 4. Say erudite, not erudite. Because you are judged by how you speak, you want to avoid common misstatements, especially if you're a job seeker. For instance, do you know the difference between imply and infer? Only a speaker can imply. Only a listener can infer. And when you say you'll be out of pocket, do you mean out of touch? Out of pocket means you're on your own dime, not yet reimbursed. And if anyone ever asks, why do you always answer a question with a question? You should reply, do I do that? Just kidding. From survivalspeech.com, I'm Holland Cook.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone? You forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection. You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You're invited to join us. 603-283-6160. It's 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Aria,
Nikki, and Bonnie.
And we're talking about this journalist who is basically just doing the stuff you would expect a journalist to actually do. She talks about police accountability quite a bit. She records them, choking people at traffic stops and things like that. I saw an unrelated story earlier, and I never actually clicked it to follow through with it or anything like that, but it was something like someone did a study, and I think it was 45 out of 120 traffic stops escalated into violence because of situations that the police were on video causing. So it's no surprise here, right? We have a friend who went through something like this recently here in New Hampshire. Got pulled over for having a tail light out or some kind of nonsense like that, or its expired registration. I don't remember what the details were. Ended up, the cop smelled pot, which in New Hampshire is punishable by a ticket. It's not an arrestable offense. And he ended up, I don't know what happened to him, but his girlfriend or wife or whatever showed up at the scene as well. She got tackled, got beaten pretty badly, ended up with fractured bones in her face and stuff like that. I mean, cops are violent. Their job is to be violent. It's literally their job to go out there and inflict violence on people.
And that shouldn't have even been an event. Like, traffic stops should not be a thing. Like, it doesn't matter if somebody's taillight is out or if their registration is expired. None of those things actually matter. Like, we don't need police to enforce those things. And like you said, they escalate into violent situations where this woman, who is probably like 100 pounds soaking wet, got physically assaulted by the police to the point where she had broken bones and had to go to the hospital.
And in this case, there was no arguing, oh, well, she was yelling at the cops or anything like that. She was running away from the cops because she just saw a man chasing her. So she started running into the grocery store and she got tackled.
Which you would expect a woman to do at night in a parking lot when someone starts running after her, to run into a store, right? Where there are witnesses and other people who can intervene. Yeah. So cops are screwed up, even here in New Hampshire. I mean, we do have fairly good cops. I mean, for what cops are, the ones in New Hampshire are usually pretty decent. They're still cops, so there's a threshold to how good they actually are. They're less evil, than your average cop in, say, Minneapolis or Memphis, Tennessee, or wherever. But they're still cops, and they're certainly less evil than the cops we're talking about here, who gave this woman information that she requested and then tried to charge her for using that information in a way that they didn't like.
So, more good news about this case. So, not only was she released from prison over this, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit Monday rejected the lower court's reasoning, removing qualified immunity from the cops on the bulk of Villarreal's claims and permitting her to state her case before a jury. The judge said, "This is not just an obvious constitutional infringement. It's hard to imagine a more textbook violation of the First Amendment." This was Judge James C. Ho.
Those are harsh words coming from a judge who is on the same side as these police officers.
He also said, if the freedom of speech secured by the First Amendment includes the right to curse at a public official, then it surely includes the right to politely ask that the official answer a few questions as well.
Certainly it does. It's amazing that a judge would take this firm a position. I'm not used to seeing that out of judges because they are all on the same side. And this is one of the things I'm constantly reminding my attorney about, because he likes referring to the prosecutors as the government and the judge as the court. And I'm like, no, they're all government here. They're all on the same side. The prosecutors are the prosecutors for the government. The judge is the judge for the government.
Yeah. So the Fifth Circuit likewise sided with Villarreal on her wrongful arrest claim, as well as her allegation that the cops violated the Equal Protection Clause to selectively enforce the law against her, which they clearly did. But it's really impressive that these judges sided with her with that, because to you or me, it seems obvious, right? But you can't always expect a judge to,
It depends on the judge, sadly.
Maybe they just personally didn't like these cops for whatever reason. Maybe these cops keep giving them these crap cases they have to deal with.
Well, it sounds like these cops suck because they're choking people out at traffic stops. And what was the other one? Like somebody was murdered and she was looking into it, and that's why the cops are mad?
Sounds really suspicious.
There was one about she revealed the details of a family that was killed in a car crash. And the other one was a border patrol guy who killed himself. And those things upset her. So presumably, from what if I remember all of this correctly, she asked the cops for identifying information about the family that was killed in a car crash.
Yeah.
And then she got arrested for it. Those charges were ultimately dropped, and she was like, no, that's not good enough. These cops need to be punished for this obvious violation of my rights. And the judge went, yeah, you know what? I think you're correct. That qualified immunity thing, it doesn't apply here, and you're free to sue them and get your civil trial before a jury. I guess that's how that works. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, kudos to that cop. I mean, to that judge, but I mean, obviously, judges are
big
basically cops. Yeah, I mean, because they are all one and the same.
Yeah,
really.
Cops with the magic robe.
The illusion of checks and balances and different branches of government, it's just an illusion. And I wish more people understood that. But the prosecutors, they work for the government. The government pays their checks. The judges, most of them used to be prosecutors.
Yep.
At least in the federal court system, most of the federal judges used to be federal prosecutors. And I don't know how else to make it clear that they're on the same side than that. It's absolutely screwed up. But hey, sometimes judges do the right thing, such as this case here, where they're allowing cops to be held accountable for basically infringing on this woman's rights to represent facts to the people. Now, Bunny, you also had a story about just weird police stuff. A woman was found missing, and ultimately she was reported missing, and she was found on police property, and they're like, no, there's nothing weird about this. We just found her. Everything's fine.
Oh, we found her.
Yeah. We investigated everything here. No, she
Good job, team.
She just crawled into the back of the van and just, like, she died. She clearly died of natural causes.
It's really weird. I didn't read this whole thing because I just thought this is so weird. Like, we should read it on the air. It says, missing black woman's body found in unused police van. An autopsy report found no signs of foul play in the death of 29-year-old Christina Nance. It was just normal that she died.
In the back of a police van.
Yeah.
Like she's a barn cat just like crawling somewhere to die. Like, people don't do that.
The family of 29-year-old Christina Nance is demanding answers after her body was discovered in an unused police van. According to ABC 31, a body found in a van parked outside the Huntsville Police Department headquarters in Alabama was confirmed to be the missing woman on October 11th.
So she wasn't just like, this wasn't in an abandoned police van somewhere. This was like in the police department parking lot.
Yep.
And she was dead inside of it.
It was parked outside the Huntsville Police Department headquarters. And it's a police van. It's their van.
Do they not have video of how she got there?
Right? That's what I'm wondering too. But it says on Tuesday, October 12th, an autopsy was performed by Madison County Coroner Tyler Berryhill, who said he found no signs of foul play or trauma. However, Christina's official cause of death has not been confirmed, and a toxicology report has yet to be released, which police said could take several months. I don't know why.
I don't know why either. It seems like those things are pretty quick and straightforward, I thought, but
I didn't think they'd take several months. It says Christina's body was reportedly discovered by an officer on Thursday, October 7th, who was walking toward a police car. According to WSFA, investigators are using the building's surveillance cameras to determine when she arrived to the complex parking lot. However,
are they trying to allege that she, like, arrived at the parking lot and then broke into a police van and then died there?
Naturally.
Yeah.
Of natural causes.
Is that
what
seriously
it sounds like.
what they're alleging here? Because that's even worse than the time that girl who was handcuffed with her hands behind her back miraculously shot herself in the head, despite all of the nearby witnesses saying, yeah, no, the police shot her. The police got away with saying, oh no, she, in the back of the squad car with her hands cuffed behind her back, she just shot herself. It was the strangest thing we've ever seen.
Wow.
More of the same kind of stuff here. She just calls it. Look, we were just minding our own business, having coffee and donuts, and then we looked out there and, oh man, there's a dead body in our van. We better call the cops. It's Free Talk Live.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. President Biden has sidestepped questions about whether he takes personal responsibility for the Democrats' failure to recapture the governor's mansion in Virginia. Republican candidate Glenn Youngkin won a shock-come-from-behind victory that has rankled Democrats and raised fears about their prospects of retaining control of both houses of Congress in next November's midterm elections. President Biden offered his reaction to the result at the White House.
People are upset and uncertain about a lot of things, from COVID to school to jobs to a whole range of things, and the cost of a gallon of gasoline. And so if I'm able to sign into law my Build Back Better initiative, I'm in a position where you're going to see a lot of those things ameliorated.
But it is still not clear when those key planks of the president's domestic agenda will secure sufficient Democratic Party support to pass in Congress. In Britain, a huge argument is raging after Prime Minister Boris Johnson intervened to save a lawmaker accused of egregious wrongdoing from a parliamentary suspension. Owen Paterson was found to have repeatedly lobbied officials on behalf of two companies who were also paying him. FSN's Ollie Barrett in our London bureau says even some members of the governing Conservative Party are nervous about the Prime Minister's stance.
Quite a good number of Conservative MPs, even some who will have gone ahead and supported it, are uncomfortable about moving ahead in this direction. The criticism from opposition MPs more vocally is that this is giving parliamentarians the chance to mark their own homework, and they believe that it will significantly damage trust in MPs and trust in Parliament.
The UN is warning that prolonged fighting in Ethiopia could open the way for more human rights violations. The move came 24 hours after the government in Addis Ababa declared a national state of emergency, with rebel groups vowing to occupy the city. From FSN's bureau there, Coletta Wanjohi reports.
The report's findings suggest that all parties to the conflict have committed violations of international human rights, some of which may amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity. The report has been released as the conflict in the north marks a year since it began, with rebels threatening to enter the capital, Addis Ababa.
A top Chinese tennis player has accused a former Communist Party senior official of sexual assault. Peng Shuai, a former top doubles player, lodged the accusation against retired Vice Premier Zhang Goli on the social media site Weibo. It has since been removed from the platform. Mr. Zhang was a close ally of Chinese President Xi Jinping before his retirement in 2018. He is now 75. 40 years older than Ms. Peng. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, checking in today, as we do from time to time, with the case of Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe, the British Iranian aid worker undergoing a Kafkaesque experience in Iran, where last month she lost her appeal against a second jail sentence, this time on trumped-up charges of spreading propaganda. Last time she was accused of plotting to topple the government in Tehran. Her husband Richard is now into the 11th day of a hunger strike in London.
It's pretty chilly out here. You feel the cold more, so chilly is exactly the right word.
He's camped out opposite the Foreign Office building in Whitehall in a bid to force the government to do more to assist his wife in her quest to return to the UK.
I had for a while been quite critical of the government's approach to dealing with Iran's hostage-taking, and asked the new Foreign Secretary now what she was going to do, and she said, well, if Nazanin goes into prison, we'll do something. So it felt like, well, the only thing I can do to escalate it so they don't need to put her in prison would be to go and camp here. So that's what we've done.
5 separate British foreign secretaries have so far tried and failed to secure his wife's release. They include the man now heading Britain's government, Boris Johnson. The current Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss, says the government is doing all it can to press Iran over the case. But it is not yet agreeing to resolve a debt of £400 million to Iran that Richard Ratcliffe says is key to securing his wife's return. The main news again. Democrats in Washington are blaming one another for the party's shock defeat in the race to be the next governor of Virginia. In Britain, a huge argument is raging after Prime Minister Boris Johnson intervened to save a lawmaker accused of egregious wrongdoing from a parliamentary suspension. And the UN is warning that prolonged fighting in Ethiopia could pave the way for more human rights violations. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
A fully leveled up video game character marvels at how far he's come, and the milk rushing through a jug handle is having the time of its life. This is The Onion Week in Review. This week, top executives from the U.S. financial sector announced they're about ready to ruin the world again. Representatives from all major banking and investment institutions said that more than enough time has passed since they last caused a major global economic meltdown, and confirmed they're pretty much fully prepared to bring about a brand new worldwide financial crisis.
We feel like we've given people enough time to get comfortable again. Consumer spending has increased, housing market has rebounded. So yeah, we're all set to go ahead and ruin the global economy again.
And in other news, the perfect gift for a local man is unfortunately a gift certificate to Lowe's Cinemas. Mall shoppers look on in awe as a helpless 15-year-old girl is viciously torn apart by a pack of her peers. And a drunk pilot decides to pull over onto a cloud until he sobers up. You will now hear 3 gong strikes and a recitation of the great chant before being ushered to the hallowed garden. For more, keep checking theonion.com.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, where you're invited to join us. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to weigh in. That's 603-283-6160. This whole story that we're talking about reminds me of a movie called Tucker and Dale versus Evil, or Dale and Tucker versus Evil. It doesn't really matter. It's a horror movie spoof. It's a comedy, and it's about these 2 guys who just go out to this cabin to fix it up in the middle of the woods, and these teenagers are convinced that they're serial killers. And just bizarre events happen where the teenagers end up killing themselves, and the sheriff shows up and is like, we've had a doozy of a day. These kids showed up and it just started throwing themselves in the wood chipper. And if you haven't been watching the movie, if you just tune in at that point, you're thinking, oh my God, these guys are serial killers or whatever. And it's just so reminiscent of what these police are saying. It's just so weird. We have all of these security cameras here, and this 29-year-old black woman just ended up in the back of one of our vans dead.
And we have no clue how.
Weird.
We're investigating it.
I would imagine that police lock their vans. That would be my first question. Was the van, how does she get in the van? They're like, we're trying to figure out how she got there and when she got there. And she was found dead in the back of a police van. It seems like this should be a really easy investigation. Well, let's roll back the security footage and see what happened.
Well, and if this happened at any other place of employment, every single employee that worked there would be a suspect. But for some reason, none of the police are suspects.
Well, they're investigating themselves, Nikki.
They certainly seem to be, but you're absolutely right. I just can't imagine how horrible it would be to walk outside one day and find someone dead in the back of my car. I mean,
yeah,
because you got to call the police and report that, and it doesn't matter.
That would ruin your day.
It would definitely ruin your day at the very least. But there's no chance the cops are going to believe anything you have to say on this subject. Yeah. You're almost certainly going to get arrested. But when it's the cops and it's their van, no one's been arrested yet, and they seem to just be investigating how this woman just appeared in their van and kind of died.
Well, she clearly stole the keys and went in there to die.
See, I do lock my doors at night, even though I live in a part of town where there's no crime whatsoever. It's just force of habit. So that would be my first question if I want to say, how did this person get into my car? And why did this person get in my car? And why did they die there? I'm going to roll back the security footage and see, because luckily I do have security cameras, and I could just roll back and be like, oh, okay, so yes, this person, here, officer, here's a copy, not the actual footage, but here's a copy of the footage. You can clearly see right here, but the cops don't seem, they're working on getting that footage, apparently.
Well, the family doesn't believe that she just crawled back there and died.
Why would they? That's almost impossible to believe. Most police cars don't open from the back seats don't open, and I imagine that's true of police vans as well. That only the front seats open, and I just can't imagine they weren't locked. So how does she even get in them, and why does she crawl into the police. If she needed help, why wouldn't she go? Well, I would understand why you wouldn't go into the police department if you are suffering some sort of crisis that might kill you and you need help. The last person I would go to would be the police. But for the average person, okay, maybe, but why wouldn't you go into the police department instead of the police van? It's all very weird.
I don't even think that you would go into anything if you were, like, about to die. You would maybe, like, collapse on the ground where you were or something, but, not crawl into a van. I wouldn't do that for any reason. I wouldn't crawl into the back of a van for any reason.
We don't know. The toxicology reports haven't come back. They're not expecting those for months, but maybe she was having, like, a really bad acid trip or something, which wouldn't have been enough to kill her on its own. But, a psychedelic, you could do some weird stuff like climb into a van in order to feel safe or whatever.
Well, the woman's family doesn't believe this. It says the woman's sister, Whitney Nance, said her family's attempts to see the surveillance footage have been thwarted. Christina's family reportedly went to police headquarters after her body was discovered and asked to see the tapes, but were told that the investigator handling the case was out of the office.
So, well, if they have nothing to hide, they shouldn't mind their privacy being invaded, right?
Yep.
If they want to keep the tape secret, it must be because they have something to hide. Now, obviously, I'm being facetious. I mean, in regard to the average person has a right to privacy. A police officer kind of doesn't. Not when someone is discovered dead in the back of one of their vans.
Yep. She says, we do not believe that our sister would just randomly walk to a van and climb in it. First of all, why wasn't the van locked on police property? Whitney told local outlet WAAFF. Christina's family has since asked for more transparency and answers regarding her death. Whitney said she reported her sister as missing 2 weeks ago and has been searching for her when the body was found. We don't really know how our relative's body was found inside a police van on police property, and we just need some justice. Frank Matthews, a local activist and Christina's cousin, said at a press conference, we need some clarity and Christina cannot speak for herself.
I'm going to be so mad if these cops get away with murdering this girl.
It's suspicious at the very least. She's been missing for 2 weeks, and then she's suddenly found dead in the back of a police van.
Like, this was obviously a cop that killed her. And then, I don't know, tried to cover up the evidence by hiding her in the van because it wasn't being used. I don't know. It seems like a dumb place to hide a body. But who else would have the keys? I mean, and I wouldn't put it past a cop to murder somebody.
Oh, certainly not. They do stuff like that all the time.
Maybe they thought somebody else was going to come for the next step of the cover-up, and the other person didn't do it. They were going to leave the van there. Somebody else was going to pick it up.
That's probably what happened. And then another cop who wasn't in on it, found it and did the right thing and spilled the beans about it.
Oh, yeah.
That's probably what happened.
Well, it says, according to Whitney, which is the dead girl's sister, Christina visited the police department headquarters in the past to ask for help and was picked up by relatives from the complex on a few occasions. A spokesperson for the department said the van where her body was found was last used in March to transport evidence. And then it links to GoFundMe. That's all.
So are they? So they're alleging that they let this van unlocked in their parking lot for almost 7 months? That seems unlikely.
Yeah.
And what if they have so many vehicles that they're just leaving this van unlocked in their parking lot for 7 months at a time? Maybe that you're just a waste of taxpayer money at that point as well. Absolutely bizarre story.
In Huntsville is the fastest growing city in Alabama. I just learned.
That's where this happened, was Huntsville, Alabama?
Yeah. So it's not like why would they have a van that they didn't use for 7 months?
Because they're cops and it's not their money. So what do they care?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, they don't have to pay for that van. They don't have to pay for its upkeep or anything like that. But it's certainly very suspicious, and I would be very curious to see this surveillance footage. And I want to know more about this story as it develops. But unfortunately, weird stuff happens like this so frequently that any updates for this story will almost certainly never cross my radar, sadly. But maybe they will. Maybe it'll turn out that, one of these cops killed her or something like that and was trying to get rid of the evidence. And it just happened to get uncovered by a cop who didn't know anything about it. It was like, hey, there's a dead person in the back of this van. But missing for 2 weeks and then being found dead in a police van, that's not a good look. And the family trying to get the security footage being told, oh, the investigator's not in the office right now. Whoa,
okay, we'll wait. You can get him in here right now and get the video of what happened to our sister.
Yeah, or when will the investigator be back? Of course, then they're going to say, well, we don't know. Okay, well, then I guess we'll just wait. What they want you to do is leave your name and number. They'll get back to you at their earliest convenience, which is going to be never. I'm with you, Nikki. I hope no one gets away with killing this woman. The coroner, who also is employed by the government, it's worth mentioning, says that there was no hint of foul play or anything like that, but 29-year-old people don't just die. I mean, that's suspicious in and of itself. Never mind the fact that she was found in a police van, which should have been locked, and that the investigator isn't releasing the security footage. It's all very suspicious. 603-283-6160 if you want to join us. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Free Talk Live.
First of all, the relationship with police is involuntary. I did not contract with them, so it's an involuntary relationship, and they steal my money to pay for their salaries against my will. So anyone who says they're protecting my freedom by doing that job is ignorant or they're lying. And that's how I feel about it. I feel that they're glorified revenue agents. If they're sitting beside the road hiding, waiting for someone to do something Master told them not to do, they pounce out of behind the tree, and they go running 70 miles an hour in a 35-mile-an-hour zone to catch that person who was doing 42 because they were driving unsafe. What does that make them? That just really irritates me. And they're when they show up to a scene or they pull you over on the side of the road, they're looking for someone to charge with something so that they can make more revenue for the state. They're glorified revenue agents.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
There are basically 2 types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. As always, you're welcome to join us, share your thoughts and opinions. You can talk about what we've been discussing or talk about whatever's important to you. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. That's 603-283-6160. And we are officially streaming to Twitter. Twitter evidently just added support recently for live streaming services, and now you can watch Free Talk Live on Twitter if you would like. I know Reddit also recently added a streaming service, but I don't. You can't even go full screen with the Reddit one apparently, so it's not very good. But it's good to have our eggs in so many different baskets because we're constantly being suspended from this platform or that platform. Like Nemo TV is constantly suspending us, and we learned last night why that is, evidently in their terms and conditions, which no one ever reads, so don't fault us for reading this because you haven't read any of the things that you've signed up for either, to be clear. Evidently, they don't allow any anti-government speech at all, which that's all we do here.
Sounds like we're not compatible.
So, yeah, that relationship is already off to a rocky start. But now it makes total sense why every time the suspension lifts, we just immediately get suspended again. And it's not because of medical misinformation, which YouTube is always hitting us with, or Facebook has yet to suspend us, but they did give us one of those little click here for COVID-19 information things, at least at one point.
Well, the Vimeo one, it also said you can't criticize religion, so we're double canceled.
Oh, Vimeo, yeah.
Whatever.
But that's why we're over on Odyssey, where we don't have to really deal with that nonsense. If you want a video channel where you can always watch Free Talk Live, where we're not going to be censored, where we're not going to be suspended or banned, then check out our Odyssey channel at video.freetalklive.com. It's backed by Library, which is a decentralized blockchain-based media sharing protocol. It's really cool. It's like BitTorrent in that the more people who watch your stuff, the faster it is for people to download. And all the blockchain actually does is it points to the index of where the files are actually located at. It's really cool concept, and it's completely uncensorable. Now, Odyssey is censorable. It's a web-based front end for library, basically, and they do have some rules and stuff like that, like they don't allow pornography, but obviously that's not an issue here on Free Talk Live. So if you want that, a video channel where you can actually stream and be yourself, you might consider joining Odyssey or just subscribing to our channel at video.freetalklive.com. That's the best way to find it. But let's go to the phones. We have Mike calling from Virginia. Mike, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, I'm asking about the girl that was found dead in the police van. Sounds like you guys have already convicted the police without knowing the facts. And I'm just curious, if the girl's family has come and picked her up at the police station before, why was she there? And you also mentioned that 29-year-olds don't just randomly die, but obviously you don't realize there's an opioid crisis in the United States and really worldwide right now where people as young as 6 are dying from opioids. So
okay.
What's your logic behind that?
Fair point. So let's start at the beginning. To be fair, yes, we have no evidence that the police are guilty of killing this woman.
We're not convicting anyone, though, because we don't claim the power over other people to put them in cages.
But we're maybe not convicting them, but there was a strong suggestion that a police officer killed this girl, and we don't know that. However, if I went outside one day and I found in one of my unused vehicles, because I do have a second car that I probably haven't driven but like once this entire year, found a dead body in it, would you be inclined to believe that I didn't kill this person?
And then you wouldn't hand over the videos because you have surveillance in your yard.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh yeah, I'm not able to get you those videos right now. When people ask me about it, would you be inclined to believe that I didn't kill this person?
It quite honestly, it all depends. If you live in a crime-ridden area and there's drug addicts like San Francisco and L.A., where they sleep in dumpsters, they sleep anywhere they can, and they overdose because they want to get out of the weather, there's a number of reasons somebody could be in a vehicle. And as far as it not being locked, it's very common for police vehicles not to be locked, especially if they're unarmed in a parking lot that's usually in a caged environment with fencing around it. So that's not...
I've never seen a police department that had fencing around it. A jail maybe, but never an actual police department. But I want to be 100% clear here. So if I went outside one day and I found a dead body...
No, how about...
in the backseat of my car.
Your roommate found the dead body in your car. Because, you know...
Okay, well, it really doesn't matter who finds it, right?
Nowhere are you comparing apples to apples with this.
They found a dead body in the back seat of their car. I mean, that's apples. That's as apples to apples as you can get.
In a police van at a police station.
So it's just different because they're cops and they have special privileges?
You just are inclined to believe that they didn't kill someone because you can't tell me that you don't think all the the evidence points to some foul play here. The girl's family already spoke to her character and said she's not the type to climb into random vans, and you're just all you're thinking is you believe that the cops.
You don't know what I'm thinking. So let's stop there. But
I know what you said.
Y'all admitted that she's been picked up at the police station.
She went there to ask for help.
For what? For what? Do you know why?
The article
didn't say. Do you know why? I don't know what you're implying.
No, the question is for you. Do you know why she was there?
No, because the article didn't say. But you're the one implying that it was because she was doing drugs.
But do you think she was, or do you think she wasn't?
Does it really matter what I think? Her family said she's not the type to climb in random vans.
And also, if I were to be on drugs, I think a police van would be the last place that I would go.
And you don't know. Maybe if you're smoking pot and you're halfway logical, maybe so. If you're on crack, LSD, or opioids, you don't know what you're thinking because you're not rational at that point. I know. Believe me, I know. I've been there.
I don't believe you because opioids don't make you trip or irrational or likely to climb into a random van.
Okay, and this is why I don't listen to y'all, because y'all have prophesied and ran through the whole scenario like you're doing a crime scene, and you convicted the police, but you're the same people that when the police are needed, you'll call them.
Oh, no, we won't. No, we won't, Mike. And my campaign for sheriff proved that when my property was vandalized, my car was vandalized, my signs were stolen, and not once did I ever call the police.
My car was also vandalized this year, and my roommate was trying to get me to call the police, and they even showed up, and I told them, no, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, we don't call the police when we need help. We call our friends, because our friends aren't going to show up and shoot us.
Oh, okay. So every time the police show up, they shoot somebody.
Not every time, but it's not a risk I'm willing to take. They do it more often than my friends do. I've never had a friend show up and shoot me.
I would wager your paycheck against mine that if your place was vandalized and you called the police, that you would not be a victim. I would bet my life on that.
Well, I don't care if the chances are 1% or 0.1% when it comes to police, because they do show up and shoot people. There's countless news stories of parents dealing with out-of-control autistic kids who call the police for help, and the police end up, I think they put 17 bullets into a 9-year-old kid who was autistic or something like that. My friends have never done stuff like that. So yeah, if I need help, I'm calling a friend, not a cop. Thank you so much for the call tonight, Mike. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to join us. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Wagner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Karl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Karl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. A date has been set for multilateral talks to revive the Iran nuclear deal. Negotiations have been on hold since the June election of Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi, who is expected to take a tough approach when the talks resume November 29th. FSN's U.S. correspondent Rachel Silverman reports.
The Biden administration says it will attend the Vienna meeting along with the remaining signatories to the Iran deal, in addition to Iran that includes the UK, China, France, Germany, and Russia. The U.S. pulled out of the deal in 2018 at then President Donald Trump's direction and reimposed punishing sanctions, prompting Iran to breach limits on uranium enrichment set by the pact. Western nations have been calling on Iran to rejoin negotiations for months, warning that Tehran's nuclear advances have now strayed significantly beyond the limits set by the original deal.
U.S. President Joe Biden's Democratic Party is still reeling from losing the governorship in the state of Virginia. Republican candidate Glenn Youngkin won a shock come-from-behind victory that has rankled Democrats and raised fears about their prospects of retaining control of both houses of Congress in next November's midterm elections. FSN's U.S. correspondent Simon Marks says Democrats are blaming one another for the party's shock defeat.
They're essentially forming a circular firing squad up on Capitol Hill, with senior Democrats expressing fury that essentially their candidate in Virginia, Terry McAuliffe, was unable to point to any major legislative achievements, while the president's main domestic items remain stuck in limbo in Congress. And that's due to disunity within the party itself, and also to the fact that Joe Biden enjoys only a wafer-thin majority and has not yet succeeded in dragging either his infrastructure bill or the much bigger separate spending bill across the finishing line. But this is a wake-up call, a clear indication that voters are impatient, with polls showing a majority believe the country is on the wrong track.
The U.S. Federal Reserve has announced it will begin tapering its monthly bond buying program. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
In a statement released by the Federal Reserve, it announced the decision was made due to substantial progress that the US economy has made. The Fed has been buying $120 billion in Treasury bonds and mortgage-backed securities each month. That's being tapered down by $15 billion per month, but the central bank is leaving interest rates unchanged at near zero. The Federal Reserve's tasked with balancing economic growth with curbing inflation that's risen in recent months. The health of the US labour market will also dictate how the Fed acts going forward.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, where we invite you to join us, even if you disagree or even if you think we're wrong about our assessment of a situation. 603-283-6160. You can call in and tell us about it. 603-283-6160. And we're allowed to do that in large part because of our new Patreon program. You can find it at amps.freetalklive.com. Such as Leah here has done. She's joined it. She's giving at least $10 per month. She's a gold level member. And we don't ask that. All we ask is $5 per month. That gets you into the program. And it does come with a number of cool little benefits. There's an AMP-only Facebook group, and I think there's an AMP-only chat on our Matrix server. And there's even an AMP-only version of the podcast. But really, the reason you should join is because you like Free Talk Live and you want to help us reach larger audiences, because you value the ideas of people being able to call in a national radio show and hash out these ideas, because the last caller was right. We did, perhaps unfairly, suggest definitively that the police killed this woman, and we don't know that. It could have been anyone killed this woman and dropped her off in the police van. That doesn't seem very likely, but it's possible. And we don't have any facts beyond what we read in that article to go on. So, that little check was certainly valuable. And if you value that, you might consider joining the AMPS program. That's amps.freetalklive.com. Thank you, Leah, for your contributions. Let's keep going to the phones. We have Bob calling from West Virginia. Bob, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, this is Bob from West Virginia. In regards to the body found in that police van, that is speculation because correlation is not causation. There are other possible outcomes that can explain what actually happened to that.
I never said that I know for a fact that this
I didn't say
woman
you.
was killed by cops. I mean, both of you callers are basically saying that. And the thing is...
I didn't say anything. I merely made a statement about rhetoric and
so can you
fallacy.
offer an alternative hypothesis about how this dead girl could have ended up in the back of this police van?
That's a good question. What you need to do is you need to investigate and get possible suspects, as you usually do, and investigate it to the point where you get evidence that's incontrovertible or a very heavy preponderance of evidence.
That's not my job. My job is I'm reporting a story. This story has...
No, I'm not pointing the finger at you. Don't feel like you're being...
I'm just talking to you. Anyways, that's not my job. I don't need to go investigate this, but there are very obvious signs of foul play in this story, and cops every day cover up things.
Right. That's a possible outcome. Yes, it is. There are other possible outcomes, too. We don't really know.
Such as?
Well, that's a good question. We have to investigate to find out.
No, can you just offer up one hypothesis of how this girl could have ended up?
I don't have enough information. I'm merely saying that
just speculate.
Correlation is not causation. That's all.
I understand, but
there's nothing to offer up.
So
you could say that the police did it, sure. You could say that somebody did it, some heinous criminal in the police department did it. You could also say that you could a myriad of possible.
Yes, but you're not offering up a single
one. Create all kinds of possible outcomes. But
can you offer one single way that this girl could?
No, I can't.
I'm not asking you to say that this is the way that it happened. I'm just saying, can you come up with any possible hypothetical of how this girl could have wound up dead in a police van?
I would say you'd have to investigate it. I'm saying it's unknown circumstance.
Well, it can't be investigated because the people who have the evidence are the police, and they're refusing to release it. So,
okay, well then you have to bring them to court.
The courts and the police are on the same side.
I'm not saying they're guilty. They're guilty of withholding evidence, maybe, but that doesn't mean they killed this person. That we don't know who killed this person. We're just saying it's a fresh case, apparently.
So you're just not allowed to speculate on the radio at all.
Well, speculation is an objection in court, and that's what
we're not in court.
Sustained.
Yeah, I don't really care how they run their crap.
No, it's just you can. There's a lot of people that are found guilty of offenses through specious circumstantial evidence, get put into the death row places, in the prisons, and some of them get the Innocence Program or whatever it is. Has actually caused the release of people on death row because of
radio people in a different state talking about it.
To do with it. No, that has nothing to do with it.
You're absolutely right. There are countless people in prisons who have been wrongfully convicted of crimes that they didn't commit
because they're specious. Because they actually did apply their speculation in a circumstantial manner, and what happens then is you got innocent people being put to death. And yes, they have found certain circumstances and evidence after the fact, after they've actually put people to death.
Yeah, and who leads these investigations? Who leads these investigations with these suspicious circumstances and this specious reasoning?
Human beings did.
Police officers.
Well,
is
police
the correct
are human
answer.
beings, yes.
No, they have lost their humanity.
Well, who knows how if they've done something that's heinous and actually have falsely accused a certain individual or tried to put a feather in their cap for convictions, yes, I would say they're heinous. And I would say that they've lost their humanity. And there's a lot of people in this world like that. No matter where you go, you'll find people such as that because human beings are flawed individuals. We are flawed animals. Sure. We do things because because we're not perfect in any regard.
I'm just comfortable that these are the calls we're getting just because it's police property we're talking about. If we covered a story where there was a girlfriend that went missing for days and then, she was found in the van of the boyfriend, he, called the cops and was like, hey, found her. She was dead in my van. We wouldn't be getting calls like, you can't speculate. You can't speculate. You don't know what happened. Causation's not correlation.
And that guy would be in jail right now awaiting
no matter
trial.
Who they are. No matter if they're police or if they're the guy Laundry, remember that fellow with his fiancée? That brought her off to the Wild West, and they went and saw the Grand Tetons and so forth.
Bob, there is such a monumental difference here between the consequences of us saying, even if I were to say, the police definitely, for certain killed this girl. Right. No one's getting sent to prison. No one's having violence inflicted on them. No one's being kidnapped or put on death row because of my accusation. It carries no weight whatsoever. It's just an opinion. But when the police do it, it's not an opinion. People die.
No, I'm not. Anybody who does, it doesn't matter if you're the police or not.
You're just not allowed to speculate things?
You can speculate all day long, but to say definitively that so-and-so committed this crime is basically an injustice.
There's no injustice here. It's just it's incorrect, maybe, but it's not injustice. Well, in that case, Bob, I'm going to say definitively, yes, the cops murdered this woman. I have no doubt whatsoever.
But, previously that wasn't said, though. Previously we were just speculating and we're like, this seems like the most likely cause.
All I'm saying simply is there are other possible outcomes. Am I right? That's my only...
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know that that's true because you have yet to present even one possible way this girl could have...
No, I don't have to present it. There are...
You do. You kind of do.
I can present one.
Not found to be the case.
I'll present one, and I still think that the cops just make more sense.
Unknown possible outcomes. That's the whole idea.
Okay, but can you present even one of them, Bob? Even one way this 29-year-old girl could have ended up dead?
Martians came down from outer space, and they flew down in their flying saucer.
I'll give it to you.
He's got us there. I mean, that's probably a good one.
They landed there, and they found her to be, she looked like she was a deadly person. And so these Martians, not knowing our culture, zapped her, and then they didn't know what to do with her body, so they stuffed her in the...
So you're making the point that it only really makes sense that the cops did that? Is that what you're trying to say? The only other thing you can think of is Martians?
Let your mind be the sky is the limit of how many possible outcomes. If you don't know them, it's an expanding tree. It's an exponential expansion.
Bob, thank you so much for the call tonight. I got to give it to you. I asked for a hypothetical scenario. It took the better part of the segment, but you did give us one, and I have to point out that the scenario you provided was so outlandishly outrageous that I would be ashamed to be the one saying, oh, you can't just conclude this logical, rational thing. It could have been Martians. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
Hi, I'm Derek J. To me, an activist's calling is to actively work to advance a cause. The cause for which I work is personal freedom. I believe my life is best when I engage in voluntary interactions and self-government. I reject the idea that anyone else has a higher claim to my life or my body than I do. I see people who call themselves the government as a threat to my personal freedom. I realize you may feel differently, but my relationship with the people who call themselves the government is completely involuntary. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealestate.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, where we've been talking about this story where these cops absolutely, for sure, without a doubt, should be on death row, murdered this poor woman in cold blood, beat her to death with a baton. Of course, that's not what we said at any point during this, but in fact, we're being told by somebody watching on Facebook that they have since released the footage and it shows her climbing into the van, which can't be opened from the inside because it's a police van, but still, did she die overnight? I mean, surely she could have banged on windows or got someone's attention the next day or something. So yeah. I don't know all the details. Never claimed to. Just said it was weird that the family didn't have the police footage. And, that's where we're at, where if, just like anyone else, it's not just like anyone else. If a random person did find a dead body in their car, I would be more inclined to believe that they honestly just discovered this dead body if they weren't a cop.
Yeah, honestly.
But if they were a cop, I'm like, yeah, you found it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've had this story for a few days that I've been wanting to get into because one of my friends on Facebook, a coworker of mine, said something to the effect of, there's no money to be made in COVID-19. And that's just so strikingly ignorant that I want to talk about it, because that's what a lot of people seem to think, because they think, well, the vaccines are free, so how could they possibly be making money? But no, they're not actually free. The government's paying for it in what is one of the largest transfers of wealth from the American public to these pharmaceutical companies that we've ever seen. Pfizer's revenue and profits are soaring because of its COVID vaccine business. Pfizer reported that earnings and sales more than doubled in the past quarter and raised its outlook for results the full year, thanks greatly to its COVID-19 vaccine. The company, and remember, if you ever want to find out what's really going on here, just follow the money. And the money is very clearly going via inflation and taxes and all of this other stuff from the American taxpayer, from the American user of US dollars into these pharmaceutical companies. Pfizer reported adjusted earnings of $7.7 billion, up 133%, more than double from a year earlier. Revenue soared to $24.1 billion, up 134%. Both easily cleared results forecast by analysts. And now it's been approved for children. That's an even larger range of people that they can have these vaccines sold for. The vaccine business alone was responsible for more than 60% of the company's sales.
Wow.
Now, this is Pfizer. Half of the stuff that you buy from the medicine aisle at the grocery store is owned by Pfizer. A lot of the pharmaceuticals that you get from the pharmacy are owned by Pfizer. A lot of the healthcare products that you get, the bath soaps and the laundry detergents or whatever, are owned by Pfizer.
And that's not a small amount of money.
No, it's not. And more than 60% of their company's sales was from the COVID-19 vaccine.
Well, when you tell every single person that they need to go out and get that vaccine, I mean...
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a lot of sales.
Vaccine revenue rose to $14.5 billion from only $1.7 billion a year earlier, more than 10x.
Oh my gosh.
Well, almost 10x. The company said its COVID vaccine sales accounted for $13 billion of that revenue. Revenue outside of its COVID vaccine business was up a far more modest 7%. So their revenue from all of their other stuff, it's still up by 7%. But their revenue because of COVID-19 up 133% versus last year. So there's definitely money to be made in COVID-19.
I bet Pfizer was a big donator to the Biden campaign.
I'm sure they were. And they probably also were a large donor to the Trump campaign, to be fair. This year, the COVID vaccine has brought in revenue of $24.5 billion, and Pfizer said it expects a total of $36 billion from the vaccine for all of 2021, nearly $12 billion more in revenue than the final quarter of the year. And it said based on contracts it now has signed, it suggests revenue $29 billion from the COVID vaccine in 2022, and that's not including all of the boosters we're going to see, and I don't think it includes the fact that it was just approved for children.
Is this just in the U.S.?
I think Pfizer is only in the U.S. It may be in the European Union as well.
You mean Comirnaty?
Comirnaty, yes. That is the official name
Comirnaty
of the Pfizer vaccine. And it is significantly more popular than the Moderna or the Johnson & Johnson. I don't remember the numbers now. It was an article I was, glancing at a day or two ago, but it's significantly more popular. We continue to engage with governments regarding potential additional orders for 2022, said the company. Yes, because the governments are the one paying for this nonsense. So to all of those people out there who think, well, they can't possibly be making money off COVID, dude, they're making record amounts of money off of COVID-19. There's no contest. The company said it now expects full year 2021 revenue of between $81 and $82 billion. It also raised its earnings per share outlook by about 3% to 5% above what it had expected to earn.
And Pfizer is just one big company that made a lot more money during the pandemic. Think about everything like Walmart, H-E-B if you live in Texas, all the approved grocery stores that, made... They were the only ones open. They were the only place you could go. They doubled their profits or triple, I don't know, a million times triple their profits.
Yeah, and all the small mom and pop shops all went out of business.
Yep.
But I'm confused. So they're predicting to make all this more money, but I'm looking at a map of the US right now that shows state per state the fully vaccinated rates. And I mean, in New England, it's all like 70%. The lowest one I see here is Wyoming. That's 44%. But it seems like most states are within like 60 to 70% vaccinated. So how many more vaccines do they have to distribute?
Well, that's just it. What is fully vaccinated? Right now, it's 2 shots. But in another 3 or 4 months, it's 3 shots.
So is that what they're projecting?
That's
we have no way to know, but
that's what I'm guessing they're projecting because they've already approved a 4th dose for people who are immunocompromised.
Seriously? 4th?
Yeah, and we've known the CDC approved not just a 3rd dose, but they say, hey, if you want to mix and match these things, that's totally fine too, even though that flies in the face of everything we know about medicine. If you're on antidepressants and you run out, your friend can't just go, oh, well, I have this antidepressant. Here, it'll be fine. Just take that.
Yeah.
No doctor or health official or scientist would say, hey, yeah, you can go ahead and take that. It's fine. Or I only have one Excedrin. Can I also take one ibuprofen to make myself feel better? That's never been the way that medicine works. But when it comes to COVID-19, that's just fine.
Yeah, and that's just the thing. It's like in regards to COVID-19 and the vaccines, everything has changed. All of the basic rules that we've been following, not just in healthcare, but just in society overall, they're just breaking all of the rules here, all of the norms that we have set.
Well, they literally changed definitions, didn't they, of like herd immunity and vaccine?
Yeah. They literally changed definitions, and even because I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, the government can't do that. That's against the law." Well, under the emergency ordinances that they're placing, it seems like they can pretty much almost do whatever they want, or they are at least.
About 67% of the total U.S. population has had at least one dose of a COVID vaccine, and 58% are fully vaccinated. So that means 42% are not fully vaccinated, and 33% have not got. Exactly a third of the U.S. population has not gotten the vaccine. That's higher than I would have expected. So there is still significant vaccination doses that can be administered, especially to children, many of whom are still not approved to receive the vaccine. As I said, I've had this story and I've been wanting to talk about it for quite a while because the vaccine was recently approved to be used for 5 to 11-year-old children without any actual research into this whatsoever. Your children are now the guinea pigs of this. Oh, it does have this update. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration did grant emergency use authorization for the COVID-19 vaccine from Pfizer for children ages 5 to 11. Now, I don't know how many children there are between the ages of 5 to 11, but it's got to be a few tens of millions at least. So that's tens of millions more doses they sell and that they get paid for.
And it's just so scary because a few months ago, I was seeing articles saying children are not just tiny adults. They are, they have a completely different way that their body and their immune system works. So it's not really safe to be using these vaccinations on little kids just in smaller doses. But now all of a sudden it's safe and it's approved for 5-year-olds?
Well, Pfizer says a trial showed its vaccine provides more than 90% protection
BS.
Among children, even though children aren't at risk of dying from COVID-19 in the first place. It's all very strange, but there's certainly money to be made in COVID. But we're out of time for tonight. You can chat with us in the meantime over on our chat server at chat.freetalklive.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get